Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Mackey, and I'm an energy engineer with Franklin Energy. Today, we are excited to present for you the growth-driven innovation and market potential for VFD VSDs in Wisconsin. We'd like to thank our partners in this endeavor. I'm part of the MWORK, or Midwest Energy Research Consortium, and we have the Wisconsin Biogas Council and the Wisconsin chapter of the Association of Energy Engineers, and of course our manufacturing partner ABB in New Berlin, Wisconsin. Mike Lutkin, Chet Collier, and I, along with Ned Conroy and Emily Ott of MWORK, lead a group of MWORK members interested in industrial energy efficiency and energy water nexus. We call our group the IEE/EWNWG. And if anyone has a suggestion for a better name, please let us know. This webinar is a product of our working group's mission to encourage technologies that reduce energy and water demand. Several years ago, our working group supported authoring a guide to proven and emerging technologies that deliver water and energy savings. The strategic roadmap on the energy water nexus was made available to the 90+ MWORK member organizations. Those member organizations include local universities, public utilities, and companies that you might recognize, including the Kohler Company, Eaton Corporation, Johnson Controls, and so on. This year, our working group chose variable frequency drives as their technology focus. Sections of that strategic roadmap pertaining to VFDs have been refreshed, and today we are sharing that information with you. Also today, you will receive information about successful VFD projects for freshwater treatment pumping and dairy processing. And we are also very excited to have a local yet global manufacturer of drives, ABB, providing their insight on identifying opportunities to save energy in pumping applications. If you have questions for any of our presenters, please text them into the questions bar and we'll work them into the conversation. So with no further ado, I hope you enjoy today's presenters. Jeff Bergman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jeff Bergman. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Water and Wastewater segment for drives for ABB for the United States. I've been selling and working with variable frequency drives for almost 30 years. I live in Orlando, Florida, but I've been covering the entire United States and the Southeast and Florida for those 30 years. I got involved with doing switchgear and power distribution equipment, so I've got a pretty strong understanding of electrical components and products and how they all interact and work. I'm in a pretty extensive pumping background because I also sit on the Hydraulic Institute and chair a lot of the committees there. So I understand how the drives are used to make pumps or blowers and other pieces of equipment work together in a package. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Eaton. I'm the president of the Wisconsin Association of Energy Engineers, and I want to again thank you for being part of today's webinar. And we've got a great event for you. We have approximately, if you're not familiar with the Wisconsin chapter, we have approximately 300 members. And I want to spend a little bit of time with coming up here in October 21st. It's been rescheduled for May. Is our 8th annual Wisconsin Energy Efficiency Expo. This year we'll be doing it in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin at the Radisson Conference Center. Just got off the phone with them. We are going to have to limit the number of attendees to this particular event to 250. That might change between now and October, but right now we're going to limit it to 250 people. We still have approximately 25 exhibitors have reconfirmed that they will be part of this event, and we have over 20 breakout training sessions as well. So We're excited about that. Again, we got a limit to 250 attendees. We will also have some unique exhibitors. ABB will be bringing in their semi truck, be parked outside, and if you want to learn and see more about variable frequency drives, please be part of that. The other thing we're going to try to get a hold of, and it's about 95% confirmed, is we're going to bring in a hydrogen fuel cell forklift and see that technology at the expo as well. In addition, we'll be doing all-day back and forth tours of Mercury Marine at the different facilities over at Mercury Marine. So it's a full-day event. It's, again, the cost for our members. If you're a non-member, it's $100. So the deal there is become a member and you get to go to the expo for free. So it's an all-day event, and we look forward to having you guys at the expo. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having this event this afternoon. So there's a few things I'd like to say before I get started about the Wisconsin Biogas Council. I'd like to thank MWork, WAEE, and ABB for helping to make this event possible. It was a pleasure to work with you all to develop it. And I'd like to thank our speakers that are on today and all of you for joining us to learn more about variable frequency drives. With that, I'll spend a little bit of time just giving you an introduction to the Wisconsin Biogas Council and the work that we've been doing with the background goals of being able to network with you guys and develop events similar to this one in the future. So a little bit about us. We've been in existence since November of 2016. We've had 3 conferences. Our mission statement is advancing the biogas economy of Wisconsin through collaboration, education, and research to achieve sustainable communities, environmental improvement, and energy independence. We've been doing that through events similar to this one, information sharing, networking, development of working groups, having advisory committees, and working on economic support and development projects. Some of the groups that we've engaged with over the time that we've been in existence have included wastewater reduction and other similar entities in this sector, such as MWork and the Water Council, as far as larger organizations, and entities more recently like WAEE and ABB. If your organization fits in this group or feel that you should belong to an entity related to biogas, please let me know. I'd be happy to include you. Some items where we have been active in particular is an informational resource. We do have a website that's available. Creation of non-competitive working groups and collaborative events such as this one. We've done a number of webinars as well. And some of the research related to market conditions. All right, examples of past events. The information for most of these is available on our website. Our launch event from 2017, a lunch and learn program that was a full day conference with, tour at the Menominee Tribal Arena in Oshkosh, related to DOD and OEA initiatives in 2018. Last year, we did a collaborative event with MWork, the Water Council, and the New IT Alliance related to cybersecurity in industry, water, and energy. And this year, we've done a number of events related to the future manure digesters and grid modernization, among other sponsored events. The next event that the Wisconsin Biogas Council will be working on is a collaboration with the Alliance for Water Stewardship, the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council, and Wisconsin Manufacturing Extension Partnership to provide details related to deploying the Alliance for Water Stewardship Standard 2.0 on water conservation. If you're interested in that event, please feel free to contact us. I would be happy to include you on our newsletter. If you're interested in doing any collaborations, I would look forward to speaking with you in the future as well. And that concludes my presentation. I look forward to our event. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Alan Perlstein. I welcome all on this call and look forward to a great working group update in a key industrial cluster cross-cutting technologies area, variable frequency drives. MWork was formed 10 years ago. We're a 501c3. We're focused in the energy, power, and control space. It's one of the 3 designated economic development engines driving growth in Wisconsin. It leverages the 200-year-plus history of evolving industry partners here in the Midwest, where controls and automation giants were founded. We were founded, as I said, 10 years ago with 8 members. Today we have north of 100 members. We've done 40+ projects, both in research and in entrepreneurship and startup company development. We've had nearly 260 jobs developed over the last 3 or 4 years, and most importantly, $38 million worth of capital invested in Wisconsin and Midwest companies to really jumpstart tomorrow's generation of controls and automation companies. What you'll hear today is an outline that builds across some of the work that we've done earlier in roadmaps. You'll have a roadmap refresh from Robert Eckert, who will walk us through the strategic directions that are happening and what's evolving in new technologies. You'll see some work done by the Conservancy and Efficiency Coordinator for the City of River Falls, Mike Marine, and Laura Tenpenny, who will be discussing industrial team lead businesses and industry solutions from Focus on Energy. We'll have a review with Jeff Bergman from ABB. Will walk us through how their applications for low voltage drives really drive water development and wastewater projects. And it will be nicely linked back to Robert Eckert's roadmap refresh, where we talk about the Energy Water Nexus roadmap that NWERC and the Water Council did, as well as the roadmaps that NWERC did on industrial energy efficiency and the DERS, or Distributed Energy Resource Roadmap. We'll continue through the rest of the morning, where Jeff Miller will go and present really what's happening in Upper Michigan Peninsula, and kind of walk through how the Midwest region itself really is that center of excellence and knowledge that drives our business, energy power control space. I moved here 20 years ago from the East Coast. I was shocked the depth of the capabilities of both the academic institutions and the companies that make a difference here. And these key cross-cutting technologies like variable frequency drives impact all the major industries across our economy, be it steel, cement, pharmaceuticals, utilities, as well as the emerging clean energy space, where there are hundreds of thousands of jobs waiting to be developed and deployed as we adopt next generation technologies in variable frequency drive. So with that, I welcome everybody. We thank all our partners in putting this together, the Wisconsin Biogas Council, WAE, as well as our lead industrial sponsor, ABB, for this, and look forward to a great afternoon. Thank you. And with that, we'll advance the program, and Robert Eckert will come up.
Great, thanks for that, Alan. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for jumping on today and for inviting me and Alan as well. So as Alan mentioned, I'm going to do a run through on our prior road mapping efforts on VFDs and VSDs. And we've done a data refresh on that, just so that will give you kind of a sneak peek on where the market is headed now. Then we're also going to talk about a bit about what's going on in the market and in the industry today, and leverage that into a discussion about opportunities and areas where it might be relevant for your teams and your specific interests to dive in further. So first is just some background on NWERC's Energy Nexus roadmap. That was the primary area where drives were evaluated by the agency. The key targets for that roadmap, we're trying to understand and investigate, how can drives, and we also looked at other technologies as well. How can those really be leveraged and developed into economic development and industry innovation? And I worked on that project along with Mark Sira, who may be on the line today. But we were looking to help establish MWork and the region, the Midwest region in general, as a leader in energy and power and controls, which obviously aligns very closely with MWork's ongoing overarching targets. And so ultimately, we can use these types of strategic directives, if you will, to advance the technology within variable frequency drives, within drives generally, and help make the region an economic and development hub for these types of technologies. The work that we're going through today really sits on this foundation of our prior roadmap efforts. And what those are trying to do is, we look, the folks who are in this industry, in this region, are focused locally, but also looking globally. So we had a look both at global market impacts, and then did a kind of a preliminary downscale to Wisconsin and the Midwest. We looked at the market and the industry, and this is back from 2016. We looked at the market and the industries through 6 primary categories. Those were energy cycle, water cycle, they're shown on here. So we had several different categories that we were looking at. And then we had a series of cross-cutting technologies. So drives was the foremost of those cross-cutting technologies that we really sought to dig in deep into. And the reason that we're moving forward with that discussion today is so that we can help to further the work that was done in that roadmap, and also support business development, economic development, and your own works. So okay, and we're showing on this slide, we're showing the core and that cross-cutting core technology there. So we did outline several cross-cutting technologies. I'm not going to go into those today, but drives was the largest that we looked at. And just to provide a global market flash that is current as of 2016, for the 2016 EWN roadmap, we were targeting back at that time compound annual growth rate of just shy of 10%. We had a global market of about 14. It says 21.4. So these are in billions, I'm sorry. So the $14 billion in 2015, advancing to about 35 billion. And that third bullet there, 21.4 million gain should be billion gain during that 2015 to 2025 period. So we had, we were projecting just a really strong development there, particularly within the industrial segment. And that accounted for 45% of the total cross-cutting growth by 2025. And here we see, again, VSDs and VFDs are still the largest segment of cross-cutting technologies. However, we've hit a bit of a snag here with COVID. The first few weeks and possibly month or two, we weren't really seeing much of a dip. But currently, it's looking like we're having a bit of a stall in 2020. And I've gone ahead and projected 3 different scenarios here. So you'll see that the 2019 market did pretty well. We hit, I think, a growth rate of about 14% between 2018 and 2019. And we're at about 21.6 billion globally. The market this year may proceed in a couple of different ways. And again, that depends on the level of closures. It depends on how much industry and how much municipalities and other players, other end users are holding their money versus investing that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But, I tried to put a conservative underestimate as our most likely scenario. I'm hopeful that we will hit that blue line, which would look like a temporary slowing during this year and next, but not really a dip. However, it's starting to look somewhat likely that we will have a dip late in this year and into the following year. The actual reduction in, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute. Right now we're already starting to see a reduction in backlog, and I've confirmed this with a few different key players in the industry. We're not seeing so much a reduction in existing projects. It sounds like a few projects have stalled out and slowed down, but I think in general we're still expecting projects that were already booked to continue booking, and that's particularly the case in the municipal markets. What we are not seeing as much of, at least in the last 2 months, is new orders, and those have slowed down a bit in terms of their development in light of COVID. So I think what we're most likely looking at, and again, it's very hard to predict, as you all are likely, I'm sure you're all aware, but I think what we're most likely looking for is some small to moderate dip over the next 2 years, followed by resurgence as hopefully a vaccine is passed out, or we have some other mitigating strategies. So we're projecting a kind of substantial resurgence just following the 2021 there. So that's after we get through that kind of a dip in backlog. In 2021, probably mid-year, I think we'll start to see really strong growth in backlog, and then that'll translate into dollars starting in the following year. Okay, so back in the 2016 EWN roadmap, we predicted and estimated the amounts of energy and water savings. So this was a energy-water nexus roadmap, and we were trying to understand, what is the key value proposition for some of these technologies. VFDs and VSDs were one of those key cross-cutting technologies. And we were trying to quantify that in terms of water saved and also in terms of energy saved. So you'll see here, in terms of energy, VFDs and VSDs were the second largest cross-cutting technology behind membrane and filtration. We're saving, based on the market development that we were projecting at that time, we were expecting, about 157 terawatt hours per year of savings. So that's a significant amount of electricity. The water savings are not as large for VFDs and VSDs. The water savings are indirect, and those totaled about 79 billion gallons. That's about, to give you an idea, that's about 8 times what Madison uses each year. So the water savings there aren't huge, and this is on a global basis, but the energy savings are big. And so, this points to that one of the key elements of VFD or VSD is its energy savings. However, as we'll see a little bit later on, those are not always the energy savings is not commonly the primary driver that causes an individual or an entity to purchase and to deploy a VFD. Here we map those market numbers over to terawatt hours of savings. And again, from an implementation perspective, there are several categories of people on the phone. From an industry implementation and working to secure an increasing market and sales, I think this is somewhat less meaningful. However, for folks on the planning side and utilities or university specialists or other people who are doing overarching planning, the VFD energy savings can be quite compelling. So there really is a lot of electricity that can be saved, and it can be saved at a relatively low cost. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Again, these are global numbers, but we're showing in 2019 our market development showed 241 terawatt hours of savings globally, and you know that's a lot of electricity. It's a lot of energy. So in that, again, in the 2016 document, we were looking to, I mentioned that we downscaled and looked at what's going on specifically in the MWORK region in the Midwest area. We identified some key players: ABB, Mitsubishi Electric, Rockwell Automation, and Siemens, and you know, identified some of their main targets for drives. And those included water conveyance and distribution, water treatment, ag comps, industrial, system integration, and of course energy service companies. So for, you know, just as a sneak peek of this round of our VSD updates, could I have the next slide, please? You'll see that there are actually a lot more innovators and market participants than those four, obviously, in the region. And there's also a much wider range of end-use applications, I think, than that are worth considering. So you can see here this this list shows the kind of leading developers of new patents and of new ideas and new research in the industry. The thing that jumps out to me first and foremost is there's a significant focus on HVAC, and followed by controls generally. So, you know, one of the key pieces here is that we want to consider for the Midwest region and for you know, Wisconsin and the MWORK service area specifically, is integration with some of these other these additional categories of drives applications. See also another kind of element of innovation. There's generally been a really strong increase in automation and focus on automation. New technologies being developed around that, including more offerings in the remote monitoring. Those are becoming especially relevant during this COVID cycle. Energy service companies are still important. You can see Johnson Controls in there. And heavy industry is kind of the other major category. And I'm using the heavy industry category somewhat loosely, also using that to consider groups like water sector application and such like that. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about what's happening in the industry so far. And I hinted at this earlier, or actually discussed it some earlier. COVID-19 is on everybody's mind, and it's certainly on my mind on a personal level and also on a professional level. I mentioned earlier, we are starting to see a recent fall off, and there's some volatility in that market, or in the drives market and in markets generally. I think at this point, and at this point right now, I think market fundamentals still have potential for strength, and backlogs are still strong. However, some of the recent news in terms of the direction of COVID and the spread of that disease, I think increases potential for volatility and increases potential for uncertainty. And again, I want to remind you of those three kind of tracks that I showed on the market earlier. I think right now, markets in industry and municipal markets are also, they're feeling jittery. People are feeling jittery. Municipal is jittery in the short term. Some municipalities are earnestly facing some considerable challenges. They've received a loss in revenue, and they're having to put out money to support their populations. At the same time, I think I do quite a bit of work with municipalities, particularly out west, and I think there are some municipalities that are well managed and others that are having a harder time. And so I think you'll see some diversity in how municipalities are managing this process. They tend to, for those that are more resilient, they tend to have longer funding cycles. And so I think we'll have a dichotomy moving forward of those municipalities and governments and other similar entities that were well prepared and are able to take advantage of cheap money, and that are able to continue moving forward with the projects that they had previously planned. And I think we'll see others that are not able to take advantage of those elements. Industry was hit quick. Unlike municipal, they tended to freeze up their cash. Ultimately, performance in industry, I think it's still too early to tell. And again, I think that's going to be one of the drivers of will we hit the high, the medium, or the low market categories that I showed before. The industry snapshot and trends. Oil and gas has been one of the key areas that many analysts were thinking would be a driver of the industry. I think that's really pretty well on fallout right now, and I think will be for the duration of COVID. However, there is some counter movement on alternative fuels, particularly in the West, particularly on the East, in areas where there are alternative fuels drivers. And I think that would expand generally to biogas as well. I think there's a strong demand for biogas, and within the overall oil and gas market, renewables show some good promise. There is an increased focus on EC motors, and those as a potential competitive threat to VSDs and VFDs. A lot of people are considering that, but within the time frame we're considering here, I don't think that's going to be to make significant inroads. Now I'd like to talk, earlier I mentioned that there are, there's a lot of energy savings associated with VFDs and VSDs, but the actual cell, and I'm hearing this from multiple places and certainly my own experience as well, the actual sell on VFDs and VSDs often comes down to things other than energy savings. So I wanted to just briefly highlight some of those for you. So in order to drive markets, I think one of the things we really need to do is develop an effective value proposition. So one element would be automation benefits. And so drives are increasingly working hand in hand with advanced controls, relevant especially to COVID. We have remote operation potential and potential for increases in process efficiency, reduced worker hours. Things can be managed by fewer workers and remotely, and improved health and safety. These all contribute to ROI. Then again, operating efficiency for an industrial facility, as you're reducing, as you implement VFDs and VSDs, you're driving down your maintenance costs and your maintenance downtime. You're eliminating or reducing wear, well, not eliminating, you're reducing wear, eliminating some of that equipment that you might need to add on otherwise to mitigate a lack of variability in your flows. And that will help not only with energy savings, but it'll help with reducing your maintenance over time as well. And these all translate back into operational benefits. Next slide, please. Perhaps the most compelling and often overlooked value proposition element, I would argue, is reduced downtime. Downtime costs vary significantly from industry to industry. However, it's not uncommon for, say, a medium to large size facility to have a $500,000 per hour cost as just a general rule of thumb for downtime. So it can be exceptionally expensive. People count downtime in minutes in terms of cost. So even a small reduction in downtime can be significant. And the chart on the right there just shows the difference in annual average unplanned downtime using reactive versus reactive is just wait till something fails, planned versus predictive strategies. You know, if you're deploying your drive system within a full, well-automated controls integration system, you can get into planned and even predictive, which shows significant cost savings. You know, you can shave several % off of your downtime, and that's going to be significant for just about everybody. Next slide, please. So what does tomorrow look like? What are our opportunities? I want to highlight what we just went over, which is that idea of this multi-bottom line. So automation benefits, it's not just about energy. It's not just about energy savings. Automation benefits, operation efficiency, reduced maintenance, reduced downtime, and even in potentially difficult times ahead, we can leverage these strategies to show a net economic benefit and an operational cost benefit, and sometimes, often, exceptionally fast return on investment, particularly surrounding reduced downtime. Another key element that's happening, there's a near-term shift from private capital to public dollars. And again, the private capital side is very volatile. That may come back quickly, that may not come back quickly. I think we just don't know yet. However, the public sector spending is really unprecedented, and there is a lot of money that is starting to become available. Just as an example, could I have the next slide, please? And this first piece happened early on. Let's see, the US EDA, the Economic Development Administration, through the CARES Act that you've all heard about, actually routed $1.5 billion to economic development and infrastructure development. And so that happened back in April, so that was very quick. There's already talk of additional stimulus funding. We've heard a little bit less from Trump on next year. Biden has, if politics go towards Biden, he's already suggesting a $2 trillion stimulus surrounding efficiency and clean energy, which leads straight into here. US DOE has hundreds of millions of dollars of funding per year. There are increasingly available federal appropriations. There's state level funding. And so, these opportunities are out there to drive specific sales and specific projects, but also to help drive new thought, new thinking, new innovation, hubs, and acceleration and advancement of the industry in general and in research. The next slide, please. So what we're looking at here is potentially a full refresh on our regional, on our drives development process. And so assuming that there is appetite for that, some of the things what I've presented you with today is just a bit of a teaser. It's just a quick preliminary overview, but assuming that there is interest in further developing these elements, I wanted to go over some of the targets that we would show, that we would be looking for. So the 2016 roadmap did global markets with a broad brush regional. Here we're looking for the global update, of course, but also Midwest regional markets, much more more detailed Midwest players, and focus on specific opportunities in the Midwest. The next slide, please. There are some regional advantages, some significant regional advantages and drivers relevant to this area. So low-cost medium voltage transformers, transformerless power electronics, and those are being developed in our area, and that presents an opportunity within the drives market. Growth in wastewater treatment, food and beverage, oil and gas, particularly within oil and gas on the renewables side. We have an abnormally strong distribution of manufacturers and consultants who are specialists in these areas within the region. And there are some substantial advancements coming in communications interoperability for industrial systems for IoT that are also supporting drives in our region. The next slide, please. While the 2016 roadmap looked at energy, water savings and market values, I think our proposition now, I wanted to remind everybody, it's not just about energy savings and dollars. It's of course about market numbers, but also about reducing capital costs, optimizing and streamlining process and operations, resiliency, reduced downtime, and kind of going for that multiple bottom line scenario for benefits. The last slide, please. And so I just want to highlight that new opportunities are substantial in federal and state level funding. And again, we can use this to create and accelerate projects, and MWork is there to help and support you in that process and helping your groups and teams identify and find and work with you on those potential funding sources. We're looking for fund development opportunities, and particularly, I think we'll see the strongest benefits from holistic value propositions, those kind of multiple bottom line, multiple benefit projects and strategies. And ultimately, these types of developments are really going to help the Midwest region and Wisconsin MWork service area develop as that regional hub where funding drives innovation, drives commercialization, and drives new market opportunities. So with that, you can flip to the next slide if you'd like, but I'm happy to take questions for a couple minutes before we move.
Hey, Robert, if there are a number of advances in devices being used in drives with the introduction of silicon carbide devices, gallium nitride devices. Do you see enhancement in that technical capability adding to the value proposition for adopting drive technology on a go-forward basis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally increasing performance of the drives. I think especially when you couple those advances with ongoing advances in IoT and automation, I think we have substantial potential. And it's advancements like that that makes me less concerned about EC motors and other competing technologies that purportedly may end up competing with drives. But I think those ongoing advancements are really going to be key and critical to continued market development.
I asked that question. This part is the paid political announcement. So MWork recent sponsored research program that's ongoing is on looking at new devices and drive topologies and how they will can be introduced into the marketplace. And so there's extreme power conversion sponsored research program that's being done. I believe 3 of our industrial members are sponsoring it. LEM, which is a international-based firm from Switzerland that's a member. DRS Technologies on the military side and Eaton on the commercial side. But we look forward to seeing those advancements and how they academically introduce new technologies and hopefully how they can be discussed for deployment commercially.
Yeah, and I think that's one key advantage of the region here is that we really do have a lot of innovation that's happening. And the development cycle, on those types of innovations, it can be, maybe a couple, 3, 4 years. But I think the upshot to that is that the region is positioned just really strongly over the midterm to drive growth and drive new markets and expansion of the existing market. So I think that's right on the button there, Alan.
Do we have any other?
Also, I'm happy, if people have questions after, they think of something after this, I'm happy to field those questions after the panel's over as well.
I'm looking in the question bar. I don't see any other questions. Are there other questions of Robert, please?
I guess if we don't have one right now, I would have a question about the larger scale purchasing of variable frequency drives. Is this a market where if you have an installation that has multiple locations where variable frequency drives can be deployed, or if you can partner with others on similar applications, that a large purchase order would help drive down costs, similar to solar panels? Or is this something that they're all one-off individual applications that require individual study and implementation?
You know, there are more and more drives being sold. I mean, it's a pretty large market at this point. So I think the answer is going to depend somewhat on the type of application that you're looking at. You know, if you're looking at maybe a common type of variable frequency drive used for, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with the water sector, maybe used in a wastewater treatment plant, something along those lines, that is, you know, reasonably standardized, then there may well be opportunities like that. There's also, sorry about that. There is an increased push, particularly from the bottom end of the market, for very small motors to include like a package system. Now, at this point, those aren't really relevant to industrial. They're still too small scale. But that's a potential opportunity, I think, for those on the call even who are, you know, who maybe find themselves developing the same or deploying the same scale or type of system across multiple facilities. And maybe worth questioning whether to start just selling and providing like a unitary system. So I think there is that is happening to some extent. I think we'll see more of it over the near term. So I would say yes, there is good opportunity there. The key element that will be the key need, I should say, would be identifying those partnerships where there can be you know, multiple entities that would be able to support enough purchasing power. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so without any other further questions, Robert offered you to go send a note to him and he'll reply back with his insights on your question. So Robert, I want to thank you. We look forward to seeing an update to those sectors of our roadmaps that deal with drive technologies. You know, if you go back and read each of our earlier roadmaps, those of you who are MWork members, you know there are earlier roadmaps, we did 4 of them. You will be able to go see drives really cutting across them. And we look forward to an update and publish that, and then MWork members will have access to that both through our website and through a future panel. So again, Robert, thank you for your activity, and we look forward to results of what that refresh will look like.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today.
Great. With that, I think we have Mike Norina from the city of River Falls. And Mike's going to kind of walk us through the activities that really look at conservation and efficiencies and how a city can really go ahead and cross multiple boundaries, be impactful for both conservation, energy efficiency, and to go ahead and show how leveraging technology can be a check plus for recruitment, retaining of companies to a city, as well as augmenting the lifestyle of the city. So thank you. We look forward to your talk, Mike.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We all sell something out there, whether it's selling VFDs or selling your ideas or your projects or what you're going to have for dinner. What I sell in River Falls is conservation and efficiency. And what I work for is River Falls Municipal Utilities. And we sell water, electric, and sewer. But what we don't sell is sand. And sand is the reason why we started using VFD. Next slide, please. Municipal utilities are fairly similar around the country, or they have some similar components. And we have well houses, and we have 6, and we have some oversized hard starting pumps. And what we were finding was on one of these well houses that we were having sand. We were pulling up a lot of sand, and that was getting into our system, and it was getting into our customer system. And so our solution to this 10 years ago was to throttle down that flow of water, see if we could slow it down and so it would pump less. Next slide, please. The result of throttling it down is we still had sand, so it wasn't working. But we also had other issues, and that being uneven water pressure. So our customers rely on us to have, you know, an even water pressure, and we weren't getting that with our pump. We were having significant spikes in our energy use, and what we looked at was putting with that particular well house on time of day. So we're going to try to use it at night more often. But it's not as easy as being able to just not use that pump during the day and redivert water and so on. So that didn't work. The time of day wasn't a great option. And of course, it was rough on our equipment, throttling that down and trying to reduce that pressure. So our solution to that problem was not throttling down our pump. Next slide, please. What we did was we installed a VFD. And when we did that, and we used focus on energy incentives through the statewide program, and the results were we didn't have sand anymore. We were able to keep it out of our system, keep it out of people's sinks and toilets, and make them happier. We had better water pressure, and our utility costs dropped significantly. And our utility, so we have to buy electricity just like everybody else. We just happen to buy it from ourselves. But we were able to reduce our utility costs significantly by the use of a VFD. Next slide, please. So then with that, like I said, sometimes it's sales. So look at your systems out there, and I know we have lots of experts on the call, so I'm not going to try to necessarily dive into what VFDs are or where they go, because you probably have a pretty good idea. So identify what your need is. And then from my side of things, what I have to try to do is overcome those barriers. And this is something I just want to share with you that you'll probably come across. And the first one, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've heard that before. So your pumps are probably working just fine without them. So you might be able to, I don't know who's making the decisions to install or purchase VFDs, but if that person who's the operator, if it's working, they might say we don't need it. And that goes on to the second bullet point, which is hard. Change is hard. I thought I was good at change until COVID came around, and it turns out I'm not that good at change. So we'll see that whether it's COVID or implementing new technology. And that new technology, while we are on this group are very familiar with it and the benefits, it's new to a lot of people out there, particularly those that are not the engineers or the operators of your system. There's an upfront cost. We all have finance that we deal with and work with, and there's no question that that could be a barrier of adding costs to your organization. And then the last one is that maybe you're already paying the bill just fine. So if we're able to pay the bills, then they might not see that it's an issue. But yet that is a barrier to implement new technology and new VFDs. So just wanted to share with you some of the benefit or some of the things that you might come across when you're trying to implement these. Now, this is what I'm going to share with you next is from the utility perspective of how we collect money from customers and what we bill on. The utilities are pretty similar, but some bill for things, some don't. We have sometimes different terminology, but I wanted to show you where these VFDs can really save you some money. So the first one is kilowatt hours. And when thinking of kilowatt hours, think of your odometer, how far you have traveled in a month on your car. And so that's what the kilowatt hours is. Over the course of a month, you have used X amount of kilowatt hours, or you've driven, 1,000 miles. That's kind of what we're looking at. And that can save you, VFDs can save you on the kilowatt hours. But I believe the real savings is in the demand. And demand, when we're going back to the car analogy, is not the odometer, but more of the speedometer. Demand is the speed at which you use electricity. And VFDs can have a significant impact on how you're going to reduce that speed. And on here, this is just an example of a bill. And in yellow, you'll see the demand usage, the speed at which you use electricity. And that first one is $8. That's your rate. And they used, in this case, 652 kilowatts. And that translates into $5,000. So it's pretty significant. If you're able to reduce that KW, that's how much money you're going to save per KW, in this case, $8. Now the next one is the distribution demand. And the distribution demand has a lower charge. It's $2 per demand, or per KW. And what the distribution demand is your highest demand spike over the last 12 months. And we carry that forward every month, and you're going to pay for that highest spike. And why we do that is because we need to size our equipment accordingly. But what you're able to do, if you're able to control that demand and to reduce that, you're not only going to save that month, but you're going to save for months on end. And where we see some of these spikes is fire flow pump testing and the time of day in which they're using them. So the distribution demand charge is kind of a smaller charge, but it will you'll pay for it. And we've seen some of our larger customers certainly pay for some of the mistakes that they've made 11 months ago. The other one is a power factor. Now, not all utilities charge for power factor. But still plenty of them do. Basically, the usable power that you have. So do you have a high power factor or do you have a low power factor? And the use of VFDs can improve your power factor and reduce that charge. So all 3-4 very significant charges on the utility bill that all are greatly impacted by VFDs. Next slide, please. This, I just want to share what some of our field guys are seeing with VFDs. And you can see, and I could read through it if you want. You're all very capable readers. So what I'm going to cut to is Ron Groth, our wastewater treatment superintendent, the last sentence in his quote was, the VFD has been one of the best technologies to come along for water and wastewater, which is some pretty high praise. And then with our other maintenance lead at the city, he's moving more of air, and we all have plenty of buildings. So this is more of, it's less about energy savings, but more of being able to ramp up the speed over a period of time, saving on motors and your own equipment. So VFDs, lots of functionality, and they kind of resonate differently for different people. So some people might be interested in the energy, some people might be interested in the functionality, but all of them lead to improvement. So that is my presentation, and that's how River Falls has gone into the VFD realm. It started with a nuisance of sand, and we failed on some solutions, but we have since adopted VFDs throughout the city and our municipal utility buildings and processes. And we've also capitalized on focus on energy incentives. That it does help. Sometimes you have to be focused on energy. There's a lot of changes, so you do have to be proactive in meeting with your energy services reps for focus on energy, but they want to make that sale too. So if you have some good projects for them, they're there to help you out. So with that is my presentation. And if you have any questions on how and why River Falls and River Falls municipal utilities have gone to VFDs, just let me know. Thank you. Okay, I see a question. Mike, was VFD technology new to River Falls? Did you use third parties to implement the drives? It was new to some. 10 years ago, it was new to me, and we also had changes in staff that were some of the barriers. To be honest, that let's just kind of run it as it is, and we'll use this old methodology. So yeah, it was new 10 years ago. And did we use third parties to implement the drives? Yeah, we did. We had local. I don't recall exactly who did the work and installations, but yeah, we did not do it ourselves.
Thank you, Mike. So then we'll head to our next speaker, and then we'll take more questions at the end. So we would like to welcome Laura Tenpenny from Focus on Energy. She is an energy engineer with Franklin Energy, and then also is part of the is an industrial group lead with Focus on Energy. So with that, we'll hand it over to Laura.
Thank you. All right, so Focus on Energy. I'm going to talk about the business offerings today through our business and industry solutions. So you can go to the next slide. All right, so what is the Focus on Energy? That's the big question. If you go to the next slide, you will see our mission statement. Our goal is to empower the people and businesses of Wisconsin to make smart energy decisions with enduring economic benefits. All right, so our overview on the next slide. We are a Wisconsin utility statewide program for energy efficiency and renewable energy. We're funded by the state investor-owned utilities, as well as participating municipal and electric cooperative utilities. So we work with eligible Wisconsin residents and businesses to install cost-effective energy efficiency and renewable energy products or projects. So if your utility does participate and support the program, you will be eligible to receive the incentives to help with these types of projects. So our efforts are to help residents and businesses manage the rising energy costs. We want to promote in-state economic development and protect our environment and control Wisconsin's growing demand for electricity and natural gas. So if you want to look at the participating utilities to see if you are eligible, just go to focusonenergy.com/utilities. We have a nice list of everyone who participates. So if you have your electric provider on that list, you can participate in any of our incentives that we'll provide on the electric side. Same for the natural gas. Next slide. Oh, there you are. We do provide financial incentives for energy saving projects, which would not otherwise occur. So we really want to help with that barrier of spending a little bit more on that more energy efficient product and project, so that you're putting in something long term that's going to save you more energy than maybe what's standard at the time. We also offer technical assistance. This can include estimating energy savings, paybacks for potential projects. We have some best practice guides and information for different industries, which you actually can see in the handouts on the side panel there. I do have some links to 3 of our industries that we have some best practice guides. And sometimes we will do on-site or virtual support to help identify these opportunities. A lot of times we can help you remotely over the phone. Sometimes in person is needed. So we just try to work with you and find out what's best to provide the services that you need. Next slide. So for 2020, the program structure changed just a little bit, but it was made to be a simplified path to participation. We are a single offering that services the variety of business types. We're trying to improve the consistency of requirements and communications. We've got one email address now for application submissions, just trying to make it easier for everyone who wants to participate and not be a hindrance at all. We're still supporting the same market types, so we have agribusiness, commercial, industrial, multifamily, schools, and government. We do support existing buildings as well as new construction. Incentives may vary between existing and new construction, just maybe the way the structure is or what the incentives are, but we do support both types. And then this year we also have small businesses that are eligible to do an online assessment and get a free energy saving pack. Next slide. So to describe what we do, we have some different paths that you can use to get incentives to help you promote and push forward these energy saving projects. The main type is prescriptive incentives. You'll see there's 3 different catalogs here that are imaged. We have for agribusiness, commercial refrigeration, lighting, process systems, HVAC, and plumbing. This is just to make it easy. You can look through these guides to see what is available. These are going to be set incentive amounts per unit. It's going to be measure and technology-based incentives. And the biggest thing is once you complete a project, to submit the application within 60 days of that installation. In the catalogs, you're going to see all the requirements that you need to meet to be eligible for the projects. And if you do have any questions, that's where energy advisors are great. We're here to help you navigate and make sure everything qualifies. For instance, the biggest thing in the lighting sector is making sure that equipment is DLC listed. And if you have trouble with that, that's what we're here for. Make sure you're using qualified products. Pre-approval is typically not required. It will say in the catalog if it is. Good example is on the process systems. If you're looking to do compressed air load shifting, so say you're going to take compressed air blow off and put it to an electric blower instead and save on that compressed air, we may require a pre-approval to get a reservation code. But again, work with your advisor and they'll make sure you get everything set up correctly. And then again, the incentives and requirements are going to be laid out inside of these catalogs. It's going to be a dollar per unit amount. That could be $1 per fixture, could be $1 per MBH. It'll explain that in the guide for you based on the size of what you're putting in. So then the question is, well, Laura, my project doesn't fit in one of these catalogs, so what am I going to do? I know it's going to save energy. The next thing that we do have is custom incentives. So next slide. If you have a project that doesn't quite meet the prescriptive requirements, we do have a custom incentive route. This does require pre-approval prior to initiating any purchases. That's just so that we can help identify if there's any other opportunities or routes that you could take, finding any extra energy saving opportunities. We also are going to actually estimate your energy savings for that first year, and that's how we determine what the incentives are. So we pay $100 per peak kW that you reduce, 4 cents per kWh reduced for that first year, or for natural gas, we pay 80 cents per therm. You are capped at 50% of the project cost and a $300,000 cap per project. So if you're in a really large business, sometimes those projects can get very expensive. We do get capped there, but the main thing is that these projects must pay back between 1.5 years and 10 years. So again, just when in doubt, work with your advisor first. You want to make sure that we get you qualified, that we can determine those baseline and energy efficient usages so that we can estimate what your savings are going to be and help identify what type of incentives will be available for you. Next slide. So then why are we here today? Today we're talking about variable frequency drives. So specifically, you'll find this in the process catalog. There is some in the HVAC catalog as well for VFDs that you would put in those applications. But we do have 2 types for the prescriptive route. We have variable torque and constant torque. So variable torque is going to be for, say, centrifugal or axial pumps and fans. We pay $35 per horsepower, up to 50% of the project cost. Something to note is we pay per horsepower of the motor controlled. So if for some reason the VFD that you're installing is sized a little bit larger than the motor is, we pay for the motor that's being controlled by that VFD. In this case, we do still have VFDs for new construction. This is $25 per horsepower. And then in constant torque, for instance, like conveyors, mixers, hoists, that's going to be $30 per horsepower, again, up to 50% of the project cost. And new construction is still $25 per horsepower for those projects. Next slide. So what have we seen? Where are the opportunities? So from our evaluation reports, which the data is all available to you online, again, it's in the link in the handouts on the side. Most common facilities types that we see, about half of it's coming from the industrial sector. The next largest segments are schools and government, and then agriculture. So we do see a lot in that industrial sector because there's such a high amount of various equipment and processes that can benefit from these variable frequency drives. So where are the greatest opportunities? Again, just like I was saying in the process, about 58% of our electric savings from 2019 came in that process category. This could be anything from chilled water pumps, hot water pumps, ventilation fans, other process pumps, anything that's specific to a process. It's not just your regular HVAC, fans or pumps or motors in that sense. You can see there's some other breakdowns. Motors and drives here are going to be housing any of those ECM motors that you may be installing or ECM pumps. There's some specific to the agriculture sector. We also have boiler inverters, so that boiler draft fan, if you're putting a VFD on there to control that, we see that frequently as well. And not surprising, the second largest sector is that HVAC for your different pumps and fans as well. All right, next slide. So I just wanted to share one more success story that we've seen. There is a Wisconsin dairy processing facility that over the last 5 years have done just a variety of VFD projects. Over those 5 years, they are controlling a total of 3,520 horsepower. This was kind of a new construction situation. They had controls and efficiency in mind as they were progressing through creating the facility. They're putting VFDs on process pumps, process fans, HVAC pumps, anywhere where it was going to be beneficial, and they knew they were going to save energy and create a better situation for themselves. They created a plan, and about every year they had different projects going through to install these VFDs to their system. I think in total there was about 200 variable speed drives that they installed over these 5 years. They save an annual cost of about $674,000 based on our energy savings that we predict. And over the 5 years, they also got close to $98,000 in focus on energy incentives. And when you look at all the VFDs that they've installed, the average time to recoup the investment was only just under 1.5 years. So it's very cost effective for them, very worthwhile. And the facility actually has an entire room just dedicated to all their VFDs. So we see quite a few facilities really taking advantage of using these energy saving technologies and getting the most benefit out of them that they can. So I guess I'm going to open it up to questions now. That's just the overview of Focus on Energy. My biggest thing is just if you have a project where you can save energy, just get in touch with an energy advisor. That's what we're here for. We want to help you identify opportunities. If you know of an opportunity you want to pursue, we can help identify what those savings are going to be, what type of incentives we can help provide to get that project going so that you can install these energy efficient options. And we'll be there along the way to help you through the process, whether that be helping you do the application and then walking you through it, anything that you need. Are there any questions? Oh, I do. I see one here. All right. If I have an idea for using a VFD, but don't know if this will save energy, can Focus help me with the project justification? How do I get that started? That is a great question, Jeff. And absolutely. So we, as energy advisors and engineers, can help identify whether your situation is applicable for VFDs. If you have a process that is not really varying, it may not be cost effective for you to put a VFD in that situation. We will help look at, estimating maybe what your loads are going to be and see what kind of savings you can get with installing a VFD. And once you get quotes for the project, we can look at what kind of return on investment you may have and what kind of incentives are available for that project, which can then hopefully in turn help you sell that project if it is cost effective. So the first step is, again, just get in touch with an energy advisor. We do have the main number on that attachment in the handout. You can always give us a call or go to focusonenergy.com to look up that number as well, and we'll get you in touch with the right person. We have advisors for different sectors, whether you're industrial, commercial, schools and government, large industrial, and we have people all over the state who are there to help. Yes, do I have any other questions? Nope, I have silence.
You can raise your hand in also, and then you can ask questions there as well. We can unmute people.
All right, I do have one other question. Does Focus still offer the process project assessment incentive? So I believe we still do. There is a project assessment incentive that will help with different studies. Focus on Energy will pay up to half of the study, up to $7,500. So if you had a $15,000 study, we could potentially pay upwards of that $7,500 to help support getting a contractor or someone out there to help really take a look and dive into a specific process and how to make it more efficient. Typically, these are going to end up being custom incentives, what you find from an assessment like this, but we do support that to help get someone in there to identify whether you have good opportunities or not. So again, just work with your advisor. Okay, we have one more question. Any upcoming programming related to promotion or education of going through the process? Educational credits. So right now, I don't think we have any incentive specifically for education credits. We do have different trainings that we support, either providing ourselves or through different partners who are putting on different educational seminars. The upcoming programming related to promotion on education going through the process. I'm not sure if I quite understand that, but again, our advisors are able to help you walk through the process if you do need help understanding exactly how to navigate. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, Matthew, but there aren't any specific incentives for that. Are there programs you would like to promote that Focus on Energy is offering? Can we unmute Matthew so we can maybe have a better discussion?
I was just suggesting that if you have items that Focus on Energy will be running over the next couple of months that are specifically related to installation of VFDs or other case studies or other things that you're going to collaborate with others on that might be valuable for the attendees to learn
yes.
about or be aware of, or if there's a website that they should go to that's got a Focus on Energy events calendar of some kind.
Yes, so going to our website itself, we have a wide variety. There's a whole business section that doesn't just include, the catalogs or methods that way. We do have sections for case studies. The easiest way to navigate, honestly, is to go to the search bar. And if you're looking for a specific technology, you could type in variable frequency drives, and it'll search the whole website, and it'll look for those different those case studies or success stories, as you may say, just from different people who maybe installed that technology, what they saw from those as well. We do have different collateral and resources that are out there when we're doing different sectors. For instance, if we're doing the compressed air sector, I don't think we have anything specific to VFDs. But again, we do have those best practices guides. So I know that we're going to have a discussion on water and wastewater, and there's a very in-depth technical resource guide there for you as well. So I hope that kind of answers your question there, Matt. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah. Yes, we do have some questions that are coming in. Thank you. So from Dr. Solano, hi, as an educator, what are the programs or plans you have to present before engineering students, let's say two-year technology students?
I don't know if we have anything specific, but we're more than happy to help, assist if you were looking for some sort of, presentation or discussion on what some of the technologies are that we see and what opportunities there are. So if you're specifically looking for industrial, or if you're looking in a even more specific type of industry, I believe we'd be happy to help put something together and help guide it towards what your students' needs would be, and help just make them aware of what kind of technologies are available, what kind of incentives are available right now to help different industries. But, we'd be happy to help support probably more on a one-on-one basis of what it is you're looking for.
And then is there like someone who is there a specific person they should contact for that information?
I'd say reach out to me and I will make sure to get you in touch with, the right person for that. So I do have my contact information in that attachment in the handout. So if you want to give me a call or send me an email, I'll work with you to help get you in touch with the right contact.
Awesome. Okay. Are there any other questions for Laura? Are there any questions for Mike Noreen from River Falls? Seeing none, we can move forward. Or from Mike, for you, a question. Do you have the ability to incorporate VFD and renewable energy generation on any of your facilities?
So anything that really can save energy, we do have specific renewable incentives. But if you're looking for something combined with VFD and say like regenerating energy and putting it back into the facility, anything like that, that's going to fall custom. So, looking at what are you actually going to save, and we look in terms of kWh and therms. So in this case, it'd be kWh, and if we can justify enough kWh savings, looking at that project cost, if it meets the criteria for a custom incentive, we look for all opportunities to help promote, saving energy, even in the renewable sector as well.
Okay. And then Mike Noreen, so for you, can you incorporate those VFDs and renewable energy generation on the facilities that River Falls has?
We can. What we have done is we built a community solar site, and so we purchased from that, and then we buy renewable energy credits. So all of River Falls city infrastructure, the city buildings and municipal buildings are powered by 100% renewable energy. But kind of as Laura is saying, the interplay between the two doesn't necessarily exist. I hope I answered that question too succinctly for that person.
Well, that was very informative. Thank you. Does anyone else have any follow-on questions for Mike or Laura?
Sounds good. So first I want to apologize. I had a planned other event that didn't allow me to introduce Laura and close out Mike's talk. I'll be on the phone for the next while, and then I have to jump off again as well. But we're looking forward very much to hearing the two Jeffs, both Jeff Bergman and Jeff Miller's presentation. Each are going to walk us through how low voltage drives really are woven into the water and wastewater treatment industries, and how ABB as a leader in that industry is really leveraging tomorrow's technologies to deal with fundamental ways that we live our lives. How we go manage wastewater, how we go produce electricity, all are key things that drive technology, is a discriminator and differentiator. And to hear what ABB is doing both in Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is important. They'll drive home why this region continues to be a real hotbed for future application technologies that get developed for efficient deployment through, some of the most modern factories and facilities. And then at the end of this, we'll have what's always hard. We'll have a virtual tour of the ABB plant here in Wisconsin. And those who are able to stick around from 3 to 4 are welcome to go through and really understand, how capable this factory is. And hopefully from this presentation, you'll see how important this is to our economy here in Wisconsin and the Midwest. So without further ado, I'll introduce the two Jeffs. If I am still on my other phone call, which I'll jump off in about 20 minutes from now, Elizabeth Thielen from MWork will go ahead and do the wrap up. In advance, I will tell you this, that next generation drive technology is fundamental to our economy. It's fundamental to MWork. When we founded MWork, it was really around controls, automation, and next generation power conversion equipment. And you've seen today both policy-wise from Focus on Energy, from a city application, and then from a major drive manufacturer and distributor, how they interface in our economy for tomorrow. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeffs and let you guys get going.
Thanks, Alan.
You're welcome.
Can you advance the slide, please? So my presentation is one that I do around for a lot of people who ask questions about where do we use drives and where are they in water and wastewater facilities. So that's just kind of where this how this came up for and what things to look for and how to identify good applications. And the great thing is I'm going to echo a lot of what Robert and Penny and everybody has been saying up till now. I mean, the application that Mike had and those kind of things are very real applications that we see. And they aren't always, we don't always start off looking at the energy savings to put a drive in, like Mike was saying. Sometimes it's just we have sand in the line. So there's other reasons why we're looking at drives. So advance your slide, please. Now, we're a large manufacturer. We've got facilities in pretty much every country around the world, and we're very, very focused on the health and safety of our employees, especially now with the COVID. We are taking lengths to protect our employees in our manufacturing facilities with the way that we do the manufacturing. And I would love to extend the invitation for any of you as soon as we're over this COVID situation to come in and see the facility in New Berlin, Wisconsin, where we manufacture drives. We manufacture about 18,000 drives a month out of that facility. It's quite a facility, very high volume. You'll have a chance to see the whole extent of it on the virtual tour. But everything we do is with safety. Everything we run our entire business. Every meeting we have, we start off with a safety discussion, and I'll just do a very brief one here. Remember, a variable frequency drive is a piece of electronic equipment. It has capacitors in it. And I always tell people, if you're going to be working on it or opening the enclosure or opening the enclosure or removing the cover from the drive, remember that there's live electronics inside of there. Sometimes that electricity has capacitors and stays there for, even though the power's off, it still may have a charge and it can still bite you. So you always want to be very, very careful anytime you're working on electronic components, because you do have capacitors and other components. And just because the variable frequency drive is off and not powered, just because you're touching the output of the drive, there are still some leakages in there and it still will bite you. So you want to be very careful. One of the pieces of advice I always give people, if you're doing maintenance or working on the drive, turn the power off and go get a cup of coffee, go get a Diet Coke, go have a quick break, and then come back and start doing the work, just from a safety point. So next slide, please. Basically, from a content, why do we use drives? Who do we sell to? What to look for? What are the water and wastewater applications? We want you to be able to recognize applications when you're touring a customer facility, whether it's one of your own water wastewater facilities, whether you're walking on a dairy, a farm, just about anywhere. What are the things you want to be looking for, watch out for, to keep in mind? Determine out what kind of applications are prime targets. Laura had talked earlier about variable torque versus constant torque, whether we're using motors for pumps. We also use them on blowers and those kind of things, variable frequency drive control. So there's a lot of things to look at. different issues when you're applying them, what questions to always ask, or talk to the customer, or listen to the customer talking about. You know, if we listen to Mike saying, hey, I got sand in my distribution lines, who would have thought putting a drive on one of the wells would fix that? So you really want to start looking at what the problem is, and then go back and find the root cause and see if you can't help the customer out. Looking for the data to properly size a drive, and there's always questions you have for you know, horsepower. Laura talked about, you know, you use the horsepower of the motor is what you do for the incentives, but you also want to make sure that you're looking at the motor to make sure the drive is sized properly. And then some other information from there. So next slide, please. So why do we use drives? We've heard a lot about a lot of very different reasons today, from Robert's analysis on energy savings and the terabytes or the terawatts of savings we can have. Mike on sand and the lines. Laura talking about energy savings and rebates and those kind of things, and huge, quick paybacks, huge energy savings at that one dairy. So a lot of times we're looking at energy as one way, but we really do when we really start on the application. And Jeff Miller will echo my opinions here. We're looking at it for control. We're looking at it to control the process. Mike was saying that when they turn the pumps on, they got sand in the line, but by gradually turning them on, less mechanical wear and tear, didn't stir up the sand in the bottom of the well as much, and then you got less sand and more water out of that well. So those are the kind of reasons we're looking for, because when we have in the municipal business for water and wastewater, we have a very cyclical demand. People get up in the morning, they take showers, they go to the bathroom, they cook dinner, cook breakfast, and those kind of things. So we have a big increase like we have here, and then as everybody goes to work, we have a little bit of a decrease. And then as everybody comes home from work, everybody turns the ovens on, goes outside, waters the grass, starts working in the garden, those kind of things. So we have another increase. And then we have the background from the industrial facilities during their peak times and everything. So we have a very non-linear load for the demand, and that causes that really sets itself up for variable frequency drives to give you the amount of speed or the amount of energy or movement that you need. One of the things I stop at this point, I always turn around and look at the room, and if we were in our facility in New Berlin, I'd ask you, how many of you have variable frequency drives in your homes? How many of you have the high SEER rating air conditioners and heaters? Now those have variable frequency drives in the fans. High speed garage door openers have variable frequency drives slowing the garage door fast and seating it slow. There are variable frequency drives on swimming pool pumps. You're really surrounded today by variable frequency drives, and we don't even really realize it. So they're really coming into our life. We're seeing them as Laura and Robert were talking about ECM motors. We're seeing those on small fans. I've got one in my air handler and my air conditioner here at the house, all the way up to the great big 5 and 7 and 1,000 horsepower blowers in some of the municipal facilities. So next slide, please. Talking about the fluctuations in the biological load, and this is more talking about wastewater. I talked earlier about, people getting up and taking showers and that kind of thing. That's your water demand. Well, your wastewater demand follows it, but it's a little bit of a lag, because from the time that you flush the toilet till the waste products from a shower and your toilets make it to the plant, could be a few hours after they've been generated, if you will. So they've got to go from your house through the sewer lines, through the lift stations, to the collection basins, to the front end of the plant and get into there. So and you can see here the load, and this is typically times of day. About 6 o'clock in the morning, we're at the bottom of the load. We have a peak that runs at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it comes down again right before everybody gets home from work, and then it rises again and follows this curve. So if we have two big loops here, and if we run it consistently across the top at high speed all the time, we waste a lot of energy. We also do a lot of extra work, a lot of mechanical wear and tear. And what we're really looking to do here is, by managing the controls in a wastewater plant, we can, just looking at aeration, we can have energy savings of about 50%. So when Laura was talking about, putting VFDs on pumps, yes, there's very nice energy savings there, but we've also got some very significant energy savings on blowers or compressors used for aeration controls in wastewater plants. Next slide, please. Why do we use the drives? Now, as I said earlier, energy consumption is a big deal. There's a potential in 2035 of reaching 35,000 terawatt hours of energy savings. So the big time end numbers are very big. And what does that do? That means we have to build less power plants. That means if everybody's saving energy, we're using less. That means the lines that carry the power have less load on them. The transformers are loaded less. Everything's a little more efficient. So it's an overall big picture for everybody in the world. We all get to benefit from it. And then we have to also look at 40% of the world's electricity being produced by coal. Means we have a lot of dioxins and other chemicals getting off in the exhaust and the scrubbers and the expense of all those kind of things. So we do want to make sure that we're, from an environmental point of view, it has a huge impact. And from an energy savings, when we look at energy consuming 40% of all the electricity running the motors, and if we look at 28% of all of the energy is used for mechanical energy for motors, and of that, 10% is hooked to pumps. So the numbers here are staggering when we look at the sizes here. Big potential for energy, because the reality is pumps rarely run at full speed and full flow. Next slide, please. Laura talked about constant torque versus variable torque, and this is kind of where we see the differences in here. And anything that is a centrifugal type of a pump or centrifugal type of a blower or squirrel cage type of a fan that takes a little bit of energy to get a little bit of air or water or something moving through it, that's called a variable torque load. A constant torque load is kind of like an engine hoist lifting an engine out of a car. It's a screw pump or a progressive cavity pump or a Aristotle pump or a gear pump like a foam pump and those kind of things. Those things, whatever speed they go is how much they flow. And it's directly proportional. You do have some energy savings. You have less wear and tear, but you have less load on there, so that when you're running at a half speed, there's less load on it, and you're only producing half of the flow that you would get out of it on a constant torque. But your power is linear with speed. It's a direct relationship. Go to the next slide, please. Looking at variable torque, the power varies at the cube of the speed. So if I have a 20% reduction in energy, I've got about a 20% reduction in speed, I have about a 50% reduction in energy. It's a very, very significant relationship here. And this is why centrifugal fans, centrifugal pumps, centrifugal blowers, squirrel cage fans, air handlers, and those kind of things all benefit so significantly from using on variable frequency drives. As Laura was saying, we've got $35 per horsepower for a VFD up to 50% of the project. And that's why we're doing that, because it's less energy, it's less mechanical wear and tear. It gives us some of the benefits on maintenance and long-term. It also helps us on the distribution line. Since we're not hammering that water every time we turn the pump on, like Mike was saying, he turns the pump on and gets sand in the line. You also have that hard water pump slamming, hitting all the pumps, hitting all the pipes, hitting all the valves, and doing mechanical damage to those kind of things, jarring them and knocking them loose. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about this, we're talking to different people, and if you're going out and selling, or you're talking to different people about why they use drives, you really got to make sure you're talking to the right person. If you're talking to Jeff Miller or myself or some of the other drive guys, we'll be talking about swing chokes and small sizes and parameters and all the features of the drive and everything. But the reality is the guy who's operating it at the plant, he's worried about process control. He wants to make sure he has the right pressure, he has the right airflow, the right dissolved oxygen in his application. He wants to know about spares and repairs. Those are the things he's more worried about. What about leaks and bursts? How do I start and stop it? What times do I have to wait for the motors to cool between those? And who do I call when I have a question? You always have access to Jeff Miller and myself for these, but those are the important questions for him. The maintenance guy's got a very different thing, because he's saying, hey, all I care about is spares and repairs. How do I go in? How do I fix it? How do I program it? What can I do to extend its life so that I don't have to put a lot of maintenance in here? One of the big challenges we have in our municipal business is a very aging infrastructure. We've got an infrastructure that is dated. Some of the pipes in the system are 75, and some of the older cities are 75, 100 years old. So we've got a lot of pipes, we've got a lot of pump stations, with a lot of valves and elbows and pumps and equipment in there that are very old, and they're really at the ragged end of their useful lifespan. And we're starting to see billions of dollars, trillions of dollars in investment to start fixing and repairing that. Bridges are something everybody drives over and everybody sees. Nobody sees the pipes under the city, under the roads, until they have a main break and it gushes and water's flowing everywhere and it takes the road out, and they got 4 or 5 days to fix it. then that hits the budget, which they were not anticipating. So those are some of the things we do. Talking to water managers, he's going to care about energy efficiency. The operator, he's not as interested as energy saving because that's not his, he's worried about operating the plant in process control. The water manager, the plant manager, the operations guy is energy efficiency, innovation, safer, better, faster, innovations in process efficiency, better control, and here's some nice words, less downtime and flow consistencies. Those are always great benefits there. When we're talking to engineers, when we're talking to different consultants who are working with us on designing some projects or working with a project in a consultation basis, they have questions about how does the drive talk in a system? Does it work with SCADA? Does it work with a PLC? How can it do control on its own? How reliable is it? What kind of warranties do you have? What kind of technical support is available for free? What do I have to pay for? How do I make sure that I'm giving my client the best product and the best technology today that's still going to be needed and useful in 5 years and 10 years? And then helping him write the specification. In the IoT, the ability to interface and take some of the data online and use it for condition monitoring and using it for preventative maintenance and predictive maintenance is one of the biggest energy things we're seeing today. Talking with water managers and talking to operators and maintenance people is, can we be that predictive in what we're looking at 2 and 3 and 5 years down the road? What might fail and where can we keep it from failing at 2 o'clock in the morning, have it fail, or have us do the repair work at 9 or 10 in the morning? We've got all the parts and pieces there. We don't have to overnight anything in. We don't have to air freight and all that. Next slide, please. Facility costs. You know, if we look at a wastewater treatment plant, we look at the cost of the facility, we realize that energy is the second biggest cost behind the people. And if we can save energy, that gives you the ability to hopefully be able to hire more people, have more preventative maintenance programs into there. But you're, instead of paying that money to the electrical utility, you're keeping the money for the city or the county or municipality. We saw the savings on the dairy was substantial when we're looking at that. And you're looking at annual savings, you can start annualizing that over 5 and 10 years. And those numbers are significant when you're looking at energy savings. Energy is one of the bigger targets we can look at for helping municipalities get a control on the budgets and reduce costs, because the energy is almost a third of the facility costs in a plant. Next slide, please. Energy consumption. You know, I talked earlier about putting variable frequency drives on blowers or compressors in a wastewater plant. 50% or more of the energy is used just in that. And then the next biggest 2 things are the pumping and the aerobic digestion. So, you know, within those 3 sections, we've got 75% of the energy consumed in the plant is things we can put drives on. We can use the controls, we can use analytical equipment, we can use smart sensors, and we can control the entire plant off of a set point based off of the actual flow, the actual demand of what's coming in. And then we don't have to fine tune, we don't have to go back and fine tune all the operations because everything's working on one set point from what's coming in. So that makes us all much more efficient. And when we start looking at a plant, we've got drives on the blowers, we've got drives on most of the pumps. How can we be more efficient? Putting in dissolved oxygen sensors in the aeration basin, putting flow meters in to tell me how much flow is coming into the plant. What is my BOD content? What is my nitrate? What is my phosphates? What are my total N contribution? How much am I having to get out of this wastewater? Those are now things we can do to fine tune and control the plants and fine tune these speeds and controls of the VFDs and the rest of the plant to meet the objectives that are in there, defined by the standards of the states and the federal government on the nutrients. Next slide, please. You know, if we look at the cost of a pump, you know, I think even if we gave you a pump, it would only save you 6% of your budget, because your biggest cost when you have a pump or a motor is energy, because you got to make it run. You have a 6% investment cost, about a 4% maintenance cost, and it's about 90% is energy. So if I can make a 10% energy savings cost, and I give you 10% off of the drive, or the 10% off of the pump, I'm only saving you a little bit. If I can save 10% of your energy, I'm making almost a 10% cost reduction over its 10-year life. And that is the biggest savings you have here. It also some of the other advantages, and I think we've all led to this, less mechanical wear and tear. Instead of running that pump at full speed, and Mike talked about they first went with some throttling valves, and that's another fantastic solution where you've got great applications that work with valves. But then you have the pump pumping 100% of its speed, 100% of its flow, and it's pumping against a partially closed valve. So it's wasting all that energy, creating more pressure behind the valve. So it means the pipe behind the valve is going to see more pressure, and that's going to put more mechanical wear and tear on the pump, the seals, the bearings, the impeller, and then on the valve itself and the pipes that it's connected to. So there's a lot of other things and a lot of benefits we get out of a plant by putting variable frequency drives in that we don't even realize. Mike enjoyed some substantial energy savings, and I loved Ron's comment. The VFD is one of the best technologies to come along for water and wastewater, and we should send Mike an ABB beer mug or a coffee mug, because that's the kind of advertising that we like to hear and see. People talking about how great the VFDs are for what they're trying to accomplish in energy savings. But some of the other advantages, the less mechanical wear and tear, and when you start a pump, if it's let's just say it's a 2,000 gallon per minute pump, when you turn it on, it goes 2,000 gallons per minute. And that means that 2,000 gallons per minute goes all the way through every pipe, every elbow, every distribution section of the piping, and it hits it with that water of 2,000 gallons per minute instantly coming on as it moves it all down the line. And that can cause main breaks. We've seen main breaks, cities and counties gushing all over the place. It does mechanical breaks inside of buildings where the elbows come loose in there. It also causes the pumps and motors to jerk on the ground and break the footings that they're mounted on onto the basin or they're mounted to the concrete. So there's some mechanical wear and tear. Drives also have some very nice smarts in them today. We've got some capabilities. I know a lot of you with the COVID, we're all using a lot more hand wipes, and I hope all of you are heeding the warnings that we're all saying is please do not take those hand wipes and flush them down the toilet, because the hand wipes are a great job to clean your hands and sanitize and everything there, but they don't break down like toilet paper. One of the challenges is that you got a longer life of that napkin because it's a scrubbing wipe. It's got a little more fortitude to it than toilet paper does. And toilet paper, you put it in water, it breaks down very quickly. Wipe can last a while, and what happens is that builds up on the pumps, it builds up on the impellers and strings and debris and rags and all those kind of things that we're flushing down toilets we shouldn't be flushing down toilets, and that builds up on the pumps. Today, drives have got features in them, like we have pump clean. A lot of other manufacturers have similar products, and they turn the impeller backwards to dislodge those strings from the debris and the buildup and get it to flow through the normal volutes inside of the pumps. So we're able to reduce the maintenance of those pumps by using the software of the smarts of the drive. We're also increasing the flow through there, because as those rags and debris build up on the pump impeller, it gets heavier, it gets harder to turn. It can also flow less because less water can flow through. So using those features inside of there really do make a substantial difference by using the intelligence of the drive itself. Next slide, please. I love this slide because this is really shows you the 20-year life cycle of a motor. We talked about a pump a minute ago, but a motor is even more extensive and more power usage. 97%, almost 98% of the energy over a 20-year life is energy. You can rewind it once, you can buy it. Like I said here, I can save you 10% of the purchase drive price. I can save you, 1% of the pump, of the motor, but I can save you 10% of energy. And that's really where your energy savings come into. Again, when you're looking at variable torque applications. Next slide. So then there's a perfect example of a rag block built up inside of a pump from all the debris and strings and rags. And this was probably done a little bit before wipes were introduced into the system. But this is the kind of things that are built up into there. We've seen what they call rag balls. And also we're getting a lot of visibility today for what we call fats, oils, and grease balls and islands floating around in our distribution systems. And we call that fog, fat, oil, and grease. And we've got traps in there where they're breaking that down and getting it to flow through, because every time you take the hot grease from your steakums or your hamburgers and you pour it down the drain, the water separates, the grease flows to the top, and it builds up these islands and these big icebergs or greasebergs throughout our distribution systems for wastewater and the collection basins. and it creates a big problem. And then we've got to pay guys like Pedro here in this picture. He's got to go out now and he's got to clean the pump and he's got to pull the pump out, and it's dirty and smelly. I'm sure all of you can imagine. And he's got his gloves on and everything, and his job is to clean all that off the impeller, and using a knife and a saw and all the other equipment to get all that out of there so that he can get all that debris off the impeller so it will start flowing correctly. And it puts his life in danger. It's a dirty job. There's a lot of dirty products all over the place that now have to be handled as hazardous waste because it's human waste. So those things, the fats, oils, and grease, rags, paper, and then again, the maintenance risk, I was saying, the health and safety of the employees that are out there doing that kind of work. Next slide, please. So some of the different applications we can do, here's a very large pump station. And keep in mind, this is for a very big city or a very big municipality. We do variable frequency drives on cities with 6 or 10 meters. So when you're putting a variable frequency drive, your system isn't too small, it isn't too big. It's just right if you need to be able to control the process. And they're very simple to install. You can work with Jeff Miller at J&D Associates. You can reach out to ABB directly and we will coach you on how to do that, help you. We have through Jeff's group, we've got a bunch of startup guys that can come in and they can help you with the installation of it. They can help you with the programming of the drive. They can help you with training. We can also offer supplemental training that we do for a lot of operator groups and a lot of guys with licenses. We do a lot of training talking about variable frequency drive technologies, some troubleshooting skills, and those kind of things. So those are the kind of things that as a manufacturer and as a manufacturer's rep who support us as a manufacturer, we can provide, giving you a whole, basically an entire, a better offering overall to help you with your needs here. Lots of things you can do within those systems. We have what we call drawdown tests. This is to talk about how much dirt or how much, dirt's probably not the right word, how much waste products is built up in the bottom of a well. You got to think that with all the solids in there, that if we let it sit for a long period of time, it builds up on the inside of the lift stations. Well, we have this, and we've got to cycle the levels down to get as much of that waste product solids out of those wells and get in flowing into the collection basins. We've also got to make sure that we're having those pumps flow fast enough to keep the solids suspended. You can't just indiscriminately, and someone asked a question earlier, how do you know how to set the drives up? You've got to maintain 2 feet per second of water to keep the solids suspended. So that's some other criteria that you've got to have in there in the design. And again, our manufacturers reps and people who will do this kind of work know those kind of things, can help coach you along and guide you. Also working with engineers. Engineers help us do a lot of the design work and a lot of the implementation of these things, and they're also great people to have in there to make sure you're doing it right and just kind of give you technical guidance on what you're trying to do. Next slide, please. What is wastewater? Wow, there's a good question. We think of wastewater purely as when you flush your toilets. My wife always tells people that when you go to your bathroom and you flush the toilet and it all goes away, you should thank me. And I also say thank me when you turn the water on so you have good water pressure. But there's a lot of other things that we have to worry about here. Drainage. We have all the rain and runoff from buildings. We have large rain events. We had some flooding out in Houston. We've had flooding in New Orleans. We've had flooding in, I live in Orlando. We had flooding down in Miami. We had it in Charleston, South Carolina, from these storms and the amount of water that's coming in from these storms, and being able to handle that through stormwater management. The problem is all that water catches all the dirt and bubble gum and pennies and dirt and grease and oil off of the roads and runs into the sewers. And now it's got to be treated because it's no longer clean water. We can't just put that back into the rivers and streams. We've really got to treat it to protect the environment. Because it's got a lot of products in there, and it's not really safe to just dump it right into the lakes and rivers and the oceans again. We also have effluent from a wastewater plant from an industrial facility. When they go through and do some pre-treatments, they goes from being dirty water to gray water, and then they distribute it into a wastewater facility. That is also considered wastewater. And then, of course, we have the raw sewage from our usages, and we also have the waste products from the industrial facilities that is considered sewage also there, depending on if you're a rendering plant for animals or chicken processing and those kind of things. Yeah, You have dirty water from your washing machines. It's not just your toilets. It's your washing machines, your sinks, your drains, and those kind of things too. So, next slide, please. Oh, I told you earlier we'd be looking for some things, and this is some of the collections of things that we've seen in a while. And you know, we have some pipes, and I talked about the age of the pipes, and you can see this pipe in the upper left-hand corner has had a few repairs done to it. And those repairs started off being with wood, and then they've used rubber, and they've used metal down here, and we still got some extensive leaks. One of the statistics that I can share with you is that 50% of the water that is extracted and treated for distribution for use is non-revenue water. It's lost water that we never get to see. And here's why: it's from these leaks. Also, we have where backhoes hit pipes, or we have a main break. This is where a water hammer may have caused damage to that. There's the connection between the pipes, and there's what the repercussions of the constant hammering of the water cycling on and off and on and off, instead of using the constant pressure type of an application. I talked earlier about starting and stopping the motor and then making it shift and offset. And you can see here, we have a little bit of rust up here from some drainage, but you'll notice that this is kind of skewed. This is coming down straight here, and this is shifted over about an inch or two. And that's because that pump is starting across the line. And that's something that we're always looking for. We'll go into a plant and we'll look for the pumps that are starting across the line and see if the motor mounts are broken or if they've had to be repaired or replaced. We also look for the valve fittings and the expansion joints and make sure those are still in line, because they've been, again, starting and stopping across the line does damage to those. Here we have a ball valve, and we have another valve here that actually has a crack in it from a water break. And the same thing here in this valve connection here. Those are all things we want to look for. We want to look for where they've had existing failures before, where they've had weaknesses in the system and in the distribution, and chronic problems. You know, you always want to look at, we've always had a problem with this, and let's go back and find the root cause. Because as Mike was saying, once you find the root cause, you get the added benefits, but then you don't have the root cause of sand in the line anymore, which is the best resolution you can get for your customer base. Next slide, please. So keep your eyes open. Now, this is kind of our funny slide here, because while this might look to be a Tupperware version of an outdoor enclosure for a variable frequency drive, it's not exactly what we would use by code or what anybody would allow. I always say in this picture, they got one of the two right. They got the right drive, just the wrong application, wrong enclosure rating. This enclosure rating here has a lot of corrosion on it and rusting, and that's all from corrosion, because this was mounted in a swimming pool room. And I talked earlier about using variable frequency drives on pumps, and you really need to be looking at everywhere where we have pumps. We have pumps in our wastewater plants and our water plants. We have them as water features. We have them in swimming pools and water slides and those kind of things, and water parks and fountains. We also have them in chilled water loops and heating loops in buildings, and in booster systems and fire systems and all those kind of things. So this was one where they mounted the variable frequency drive in the pool pump room, and the guy who was running the facility put open containers of chlorine tablets and muriatic acid in the room, and it caused corrosion in there. First of all, you can't do that. That's a violation of code, putting chemicals in there, because you've got electricity, you got a lot of things in there that could cause a failure or an explosion. But it also does damage to the equipment. So some of the things you want to do when you're looking at things is keep your eyes open. One of my guys working for me says, use all your senses. Use your smell, use your fingers to touch things. Are things running hot? Is that motor running really hot where you can't put your hand on it? Maybe it needs to be fixed or repaired. So always use many of your senses as you can, because that really will help you try to help your customer or help your employer to hopefully prevent a failure or something that could be becoming catastrophic or could end tragically. Next slide, please. So when we look at a wastewater plant, and we have also the water plant and some irrigation, this is just kind of a general overall diagram to give you an idea of all the places we can use drives. And if you ask me as a drive manufacturer, you say, Jeff, where can you use drives? And you ask Jeff Miller, we'll both say the same thing. On every motor you've got. And someone brought up earlier, and actually Laura brought this up, sometimes you may have an operating range that really doesn't make sense for a variable frequency drive, but you still want to try to soft start and soft stop the pumps and the equipment so that they're not jerking and causing the mechanical wear and tear and water hammers. Utilizing electronic soft starters. You don't get any big energy savings, but it's less mechanical wear and tear. But putting a variable frequency drives on the raw water pumps, on the lift stations, on the clarifiers, on the blowers, on the belt presses, on the RAS pumps, and on we have these large clarifiers with rakes moving around them. Well, those rakes are increasing and decreasing speed, and if you put variable frequency drive on there, it makes it work better, more consistently, because as it builds up debris on it, it knows that there's debris built on it. It can send out an email or a warning to somebody and say, hey, somebody needs to come out here and have a look at that. Instead of letting it fail or breaking a chain, somebody preventatively has said, hey, there's an issue out here, somebody needs to come out and look at this. Same thing for solids coming into the front end of a wastewater plant, where we have what we call the bar screens, catching the large solid products and everything, and you have a rake moving up the bar screens, taking the debris. Sometimes that rake gets caught. And instead of sending someone out there with a crowbar try to do it, you have the rake stop and go backwards and forwards and try to jog and loosen the solids or the debris or the blockage that is preventing it from operating like that. So lots of different applications where we can use variable frequency drives, from different belt presses, from conveyor belts, variable frequency drives. And also I'll do a little bit of an agricultural here. I know we've got some dairies, we've got some farms around here. We've got pivot arms for irrigation. We've got wells. We may have a gas-powered well, and if we can go to electricity, it may save us money. So there's a lot of things we can do to put a variable frequency drive on, less mechanical wear and tear, and you also eliminate those electrical surges. Mike showed us the power bill showing the demand charge and the power factor. Putting a variable frequency drive on a motor helps increase the power factor. It also helps reduce your demand charge, because over a 15-minute period, you're going to use less energy because you're not running the pump at full speed and putting a valve on it or throttling it down. You're actually using it at the speed it needs to run to maintain constant pressure or constant flow or constant DO or constant level, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish with your installation there. Yeah, I think I've covered everything here. And we also have reverse osmosis for water treatment and UV disinfection, making sure the water is moving at the right speed to go through the disinfection to be sanitized on the other side, whether it's using perchlorates, whether using UV disinfection, ozone generation, or reverse osmosis. All those different applications you can use drives on, because they can maintain constant pressure, constant flow, and make sure that we're hitting the right times that we need to do to get the proper sanitation. Next slide, please. The water supply, I think I touched on that. The raw water pumping out of the systems, the raw water coming out of the wells, residential wells. People have variable frequency drives or constant pressure systems on their wells and their small farms and small homes. We sell variable frequency drives from about 1/4 horsepower up to several thousand horsepower. So we do have quite a large offering. I told you earlier that my swimming pool is a 2 horsepower pump. It's a very small pool. It's 10,000 gallons. But it has a variable frequency drive, so that when the pump comes on, it doesn't hammer the water through the plastic PVC pipes, the plastic filter. It doesn't do the damage on that. It will make all the equipment last longer. So there's some advantages into there. But also, when you have constant pressure on your well at your house, when you turn the water on, the pump ramps up based off of the actual flow. It's not turning itself on and off and using a pressure tank to regulate. It's turning it on and off, so you have constant pressure. So then you don't have a problem with somebody playing a joke and flushing the toilet in the shower and getting scalded. Next slide, please. Talking about water tower usages there, we have a lot of applications across the world where we've seen water towers, and that's mostly a thing here in the United States. Throughout Europe, they've really eliminated water towers because they go to groundwater and they use pumps to maintain constant pressure. Here in the United States, I think we do a little bit of advertising from them. We tell where the cities are. There's not really a code requirement calling out for water towers, but it does give us the ability to store water high, so we have water pressure built into the system. But it's a drop in the bucket when we look at the millions of gallons of water in the distribution system below ground versus what's really above it. But with a water tower, we can replace that with ground storage, or we can continue to use it, and we can use the variable frequency drive. There's only one pipe in a water tower, and it's up or down. So when you're filling the water tower, the pipe is flowing up. When you're draining out of it, the water's flowing down. So what you do is you increase the pressure in your system so that your water flows back up into the water tower. Again, with constant pressure, that increases the pressure in your whole system, which means if you have a 1 millimeter leak and it's at 60 psi, now you're filling the water tower, it's at 90 psi, you're wasting more water. So that's one of the reasons we're kind of out there kind of promoting a little bit about kind of getting away from water towers. Next slide, please. Yeah, and I talked about the prettiness of the water towers, and you know, there's a lot of them. I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, and then there's a city that known as the peach capital of South Carolina called Gaffney, South Carolina. It has a beautiful peach up on a water tower. It's beautiful, and you could Google the peach water tower and see it, and it's an advertisement. Everybody knows you're in Gaffney. You do your east or west or north or south of the water tower, so that's how everybody does directions there. Again, the benefit of using a drive reduces the water hammer. And you can turn the drive off. It can go into actually sleep mode and turn itself off so that you're not using, you don't have mechanical wear and tear, but you're not using the energy. If there's enough water pressure in the system to run and you only have a little bit of a leak and nobody's really using it, why are we running the pumps? Next slide. I do have a question from Jeff. I'm going to quickly say here, there are some motor pump drive systems available integrated. In other words, we are using a variable frequency drive built into the motor or the pump system as a whole, and they make those available for smaller motors. We expect to see those in larger systems. Yes and no, Jeff. You know, one of the advantages is it's a simple system. The other advantages are when we start looking at failures. Electronic components, with living here in Florida, the lightning capital of the world, we have a lot more susceptibility to failure of the electronics or of the motor. We have a ground loop coming through the motor and burn the motor up, and the problem is you have to replace the motor, the pump, and the electronics. So we're seeing a trend toward doing that as a package. We're also seeing a trend where engineers are going for the customer saying, no, I want the variable frequency drive mounted on the wall next to the pump. I want a premium efficiency motor running the pump so that I can replace the motor to the more efficient motor later. I can replace the pump and get the impeller when it can be more efficient, and the variable frequency drive on the wall. We do see an HVAC for fan walls and those kind of things. We do see ECM, electrically controlled motor, electrically commutated motors. We see those on the walls. You've got some control issues with those. You've got different codes, like a fireman mode. When a fire mode would be turn off the air handlers because you don't want any air flowing. Even though you want to get the smoke out of there, you would not want to fuel the fire with more air, more oxygen. So there's a lot of code requirements and those kind of things. So the jury's out. One of the things we are seeing is we're seeing a very efficient motor series called synchronous reluctance motors. They're very, very high efficiency motors. They almost act like they are a permanent magnet motor, which means that they use magnets inside of the motor instead of the electronic fields to create rotation. And as a result of that, you're using less energy from the drive to make the motor turn. So you have a nice benefit, and the only way you can make those motors run is with a variable frequency drive. We're seeing more and more of those. ABB owns a company called Baldor, a very large motor manufacturer, and we're introducing EC, electrically commutated, electrically controlled motors all the time in different distributions. And so I think we're going to see that. I think once you get to the point where when we mount a variable frequency drive on a motor, the motor generates a lot of heat, and the heat is a killer for electronics. So I think a couple of different reasons to go yes and no on this answer. Even if it's a submersible variable frequency drive or it's in the water and it's cooling, a lot of times it's not mounted that way, and the motor has a lot of vibration, which is also hard on the electronics in the drive. So as a general rule, I don't think we'll see them going on significantly bigger systems. You know, if you've got a 2 or a 3 or 4 inch well at your house or in your small farm, it's easy to have a combined system with the pump and the motor and the VFD in it. You drop it down the hole in the submersible style and get it to run. But I think we're going to continue on everything mounted above ground. We're going to see more and more separately mounted VFDs in a motor that can be replaced and repaired on the pumps. Just that's my personal opinion. Jeff Miller may have some other opinions on that. I wanted to show this. I wanted to show this graph here because I wanted to show the pressure vessel. This is when we're using on-off control for water tower, and you can see there's very significant spikes. And we've not really talked about constant pressure applications here, but one of the advantages of constant pressure, if we can go to the next slide, is being able to control these wide swings that we see on these graphs. And you can see here, we go from the wide swings and we put a drive in there, and we've really gone from using, we have two types of pumps in here. We have a larger pump and a smaller pump, and we're oscillating between the two. And if we can go to the next slide, once we do very, very precise control with the delivery system and everything properly done, the VFD saved us energy. We have the wild fluctuations here. And then once we really got the delivery pressure optimized and got it where we were maintaining constant pressure, where Mrs. Jones has the water pressure she's anticipating all the time when she turns her water on a sink or in the shower for her dishwasher at the hose, then she's happy. And then that is really where we get some very substantial energy savings, less mechanical wear tear, less fluctuations in the systems, easier on the pumps, easier on the distribution system, and we have what we really, really are looking for is a happy customer. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. And then this is also taken to maintaining a constant pressure, using a pressure transmitter in the loop, not just a pressure switch. If we use a pressure switch that turns on at 50 PSI and turns off at 90, by using an exact pressure control for PSI control, we can maintain constant pressure plus or minus 1, 2, or 3 PSI. Will's got a question. He says, what type of control should we use a drive for treatment water? Torque control, speed control, and why? Well, it really comes down to what type of a pump you have. If you've got a centrifugal pump, I would do for speed control. Torque control, actually pumping water is, I don't want to call this easy, but it's pretty easy when we look at other processes. It's not like pumping concrete or pumping pickles or pumping wastewater. Pumping clean water is pretty easy. So I would look for more speed control. Makes it easier. It's easier to set up. It's easier to do. The VFDs out of the box typically are designed to handle it. You need extra sensors. Yeah, and I think you always want to try to tie the speed of the pump into something that tells it how fast to go, whether it's constant pressure, constant flow, constant level. You can use pressure transmitters. You can use flow meters. You can use DO meters, dissolved oxygen sensors. You can use nutrient detection. Here at my subdivision, we've got a big lake out in front of our facility, and when it gets windy, Jim Turner over there, he gets water in his patio. And he was complaining to us about it. So what we do is we have a little wind velometer, and as the wind velometer increases, we drop down the speed of the pump, so we're getting a little bit of the flow. We're doing that to oxygenate and keep the fish alive in the lake. And it gets rid of the spray in there. He's thrilled, and it was a very easy installation to accommodate it there. So I'm a firm believer in putting a sensor in for the control. Oh wow, a bunch of questions here. The same question. What is the max distance for cable to a drive and to a motor, and can we extend the distance? You know, we see a lot of applications today where we want to try to mount the drive relatively close to the motor, but sometimes that condition doesn't lend itself. And I'm thinking of deep wells. When we have deep wells, using different type of filters on the output of the drive can help us run motors in deep wells. But a lot of times when we're mounting a drive, if we've got an explosion, if we've got an area that's got a lot of combustion gas in it, if we can just get that drive outside of it, and most drives built, I think, today in the United States can typically go about 1,000 feet away from the motor. I know at ABB, all of our drives are rated at a little bit over 1,000 feet away from the motor. And then as far as from the utility power to the VFD itself, you've always got to worry about that also, because you do have voltage drop. And if you've got a long run between the power source and the VFD itself, you might end up starving that drive full voltage. I mean, it might be a 480 volts when it leaves the circuit breaker, but by the time it gets to the VFD, it may be 460 or 450 volts. And you're going to starve that VFD for voltage. So you always want to be careful on how far you have your power feed. You also want to be watching how far you have your motor leads, because you have the same issue with the motor. If you've got a 480 volt input, 460 volt VFD, 460 volt motor, and if we've got a 3 or 8 or 1,000 foot motor cable run, we want to make sure we're maintaining 460 volts to the motor, because that's really what it's all about. We want to give the motor the voltage that it wants, so it can draw the current it wants to draw, and it'll be a happy motor for that sense of discussion. You can extend the distance of these. As I said, you can buy filters, you can buy sine wave filters to help you extend the length, and what that does is it takes out the commutations or notching we have in the output. It makes it smoother so that it travels better over motor cable, because some of the things you've got to also remember, the motor cable has electronic characteristics. It has impedance and capacitance, so it will increase the V peak and the rise time, but will also slow down the rate of change because of the impedance or resistance in the cable. So it's really a mathematical equation, and this is really where we want to look at an engineer. We really want to get an engineer to help us with that design, to do the calculations, to size everything properly, and really work through it. Those are just some of the concerns that I would throw up there. How could we protect other equipment from the drive EMI in the electrical contamination? And that's a very good question there, because a lot of times we have electrical noise. I remember the days when we had pagers all over the place and walkie-talkies and those kind of things, and today we all use cell phones. But I used to go into plants where they would click the walkie-talkies and the drive would speed up because of the noise, and the EMI or the RFI or EMC, those are all basically the same type of term as far as we're concerned. And all that has to do is with the radiated noise that's generated by the drive. The drive creates a frequency modulated signal. The reason I use that term is that's FM, like a radio. And we have 3 phases out the output of the drive. So we have phase A, phase B, and phase C, and each one of them is 120 degrees out of phase. So as a result of that, I have 3 radio stations on the output of the drive. We put a lot of protection inside of these drives to give you EMI and RFI protection and performance. So we do a lot of filtering. Europe is very much aware of those kind of issues. So you have European standards, and almost all the drives built in the world today are sold into Europe. So they all meet those very stringent standards into there. And you have 2 standards. You have an industrial standard, which is pretty severe, and then you have a residential standard, which is very severe. Because what it says is, if you start to upset people in their homes, in their ovens, in their television sets, you're impacting the customer, the end user. So they have some very, very rigid standards when you have to do the residential classifications for EMI and RFI. Do I have a topology share for electronic connection of a drive with all the protection? Well, today, most of the drives put the EMI and RFI and EMC protection inside of the drive. We seal them up and we have them enclosed with lots of screws to protect you from the electricity, from any kind of electronics into there. And as long as the wires are terminated in and the wires are terminated out, we typically don't see a lot of additional protection required, other than a circuit breaker to protect the motor cables feeding the drive, fuses to protect the variable frequency drive in case it has a surge or transient or something hits it, and the fuses will clear the fault or open before any more damage can be done to the VFD and the motor in the pump or the equipment that it's mounted onto. And if you were to have a sine wave filter, I've probably got some of these in my office. If you want to reach out to me after the session, either via email if they want to share my email address or my phone number, I would be more than happy to share and go into a little more detail on you, because those are some, and that was from Will. Excellent questions in there. And yes, I'd be absolutely more than happy to share. From Elizabeth, can you talk about the data that's collected? Whose is it? How do we use it for future trends? I'm trying to figure out if that's for me or for anybody else, but I'll kind of reflect on how ABB sees this. If the data that you collect is yours, if you want to share it with us to do some analysis for you, we're happy to do that. And then we'll do the analysis and return. Well, we'll either destroy the data or return it back to you. I don't really want it back, but we can give you the what we've done to do the analysis on that, to do some condition monitoring, preventative maintenance, predictive maintenance, and offer those kind of things into there. So absolutely, we firmly believe the data collected is yours, whoever generates it. And the data collection sources we have allow you to acquire all the data, keep it behind your firewall, and upload it for, if you want us to use it, you can upload it to a third party or an open area. And then we can do the analysis and then dump it back into you, and you can take that analysis and work off of it. So, but future trends we're seeing, again, energy savings, predictive maintenance. If the motor's starting to run hot, why is it running hot? Is it running hot because of the bearings? Is the shaft out of the line the way it's connected to the pump? Are the pump bearings failing because it's out of the line? Is it getting different shock loads? Are we getting debris and solids coming through there? There's lots of things. There's lots of data here. One of the challenges that a lot of facilities have is the amount of data that they're receiving. They have this avalanche of data, this huge tidal wave of data coming in, and very honestly, we're good at doing data analysis, but we don't even know what we don't know. We're not even able to take all this information, put it together, and figure out that could mean that this pump is going to fail in 7 years if we don't do this, but if we fix this, it might last another 10. So there's a lot of things we're just learning about all this data collection, and there's several companies out there doing the analysis of the data and working with that to really try to find a way to use that to do a predictive maintenance, preventative maintenance type of a program, taking all this data and the condition monitoring that we've got sensors that come out on motors, sensors that come out on pumps, and sensors that come out on bearings. We know a lot of information about the variable frequency drives. We can feed all that stuff in. We have smart circuit breakers, we have smart lines, we have smart electricity. We have generators coming into the system and everything. So we've got a lot of opportunity to take a lot of information, a lot of IoT information, bring it all together and do some analysis. But that's one of the things as an industry, I think we have an opportunity to really grow and expand on, because we're really going to see, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of really great, I'll use predictive maintenance. We're going to get a lot of really good data and a lot of good analysis done to help us extend the life of equipment and have it where we don't have a water main break in the middle of the road. We're actually predicting where that pipe might fail by doing some of the asset management and some of the other things that we are working on in the municipal business. We go to the next slide, please. I think that's kind of got off the tangent here, but I just some that just has some fantastic questions. As I said, I'm Jeff Bergman with ABB. We got a manufacturing facility in New Berlin, Wisconsin. We got a small office in Wauwatosa, so we're definitely Wisconsin-based. Very proud of being there. Producing 18,000 drives a month out of that facility, and I really appreciate being invited to this session. As I said, feel free to share my email address and phone number. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. Either come in on the mic or type them in. I think I talked about training, and we do training for groups. We do a lot of operator groups. I do a lot of lunch and learns for engineering firms. As a mechanical engineer, I come in and teach electrical theory so that they understand how the energy is saved and why the savings is that. So do not ever hesitate to feel free to reach out to any of us. Jeff Miller is a tremendous asset here in Wisconsin. He used to work for ABB. Known Jeff for a lot more years than he and I want to share with everybody, but he's got a huge amount of experience, and the nice thing is you can get Jeff on the phone and talk with him, and it's a free call, and he can kind of help you through some of the potential gotchas that you might run into a system. So that's what it's all about, coming up with a good installation, working out for everybody, having everything working out well, and everybody happy and everything working fine, and then everybody paying their bills on time so that we all get paid.
This is Alan. One of the things that MWork has been working on with the state, both in the governor's office and with WEDC, is the potential to have a large funding pool developed. Other states have $100 million of set aside funds for prototype projects that can take key technologies and do a series of demonstration projects, that drive product adoption for our members' applications and for advancing the state of the industries that are key drivers economically for Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So I encourage people who are on the phone call to think through projects that you have with your BD teams been planning for, and we'll create a window where you can go provide those in a way that's proprietary to you, but that we can, as a collective organization, work with the state to see if there are ways to fund prototype projects that really drive and act as engines for adoption. I know Massachusetts has been really, really successful at doing that. And Dan Ebert, our executive director, has been working closely with both WEDC and some in the governor's administration on how we create, call it a $100 million fund that allows that. You've heard a lot of good ideas today. Those who are on the call, get your BD guys and their think tanks, thinking hats back on, and propose projects. You could Emily, if you send a note to everybody how they can get information to us at a common site, we can go kind of set up next steps for that. But I think this is not just about informing people what's out there and why drives are so important, but how we can go use the political process, the policy committee that we put together, the research teams, and even the talent team for pulling together skilled personnel to help build these platforms to go ahead and make a difference.
You know, Alan, one thing I wanted to remind everybody about is we are going to have one of what we call our ACE trucks, which is our all-compatible experience truck, coming out to the Fond du Lac facility when you guys have your open house there in October. That truck has got a lot of applications, a lot of drives in there, hooking up to fans, hooking up to showing you how it hooks up to pumps, how it hooks to communications. And that's a great chance to come out and see the drive used in the real world, connected to things and doing control. So always, anytime you can have a chance to use any of our experience trucks, those run around. We typically park those in New Berlin, so they're a lot of times either in our Wauwatosa facility or our New Berlin facility. But if you can get a chance to come in on the Fond du Lac session on the 21st of October, we'll have the truck there, and I'll tell you, it's a tremendous experience. It'll really give you a lot of opportunity to see how many places you could use drives. I mean, I'm being facetious when I say use them on every motor, but you really have the opportunity to use them on as many motors as you may need to do process control for.
Yeah. One of the things that might be interesting is to take that truck, and a couple of our other members have trucks of a similar ilk, to take those types of vehicles and go to a place like the Bublitz Nature Center up in Appleton, that is a demonstration campus, but really go see, how hardware is shown in real life, and then show some applications on your trucks. So,
at our facility in New Berlin, and I'll extend the invitation. We actually have taken our entire chiller and air conditioning and air cooling and heating for the entire plant, and we've made it a showcase.
Yeah, it's cool.
We've got them. Yeah, it's quite a facility. You get a chance to walk around and see how everything works into there. And the pipes are all colored and everything. It's set up to really see things. So, if you can always come into
see that virtually today.
We're not really going to get much of a chance to see much of it. I think there's only one picture of it, but I will extend the invitation for any of you as soon as we get more through this COVID thing and we can do tours in factory facilities. We'd be more than happy to put an extension out on one day during the week and invite as many people as want to come through and let them get a chance to go through it and see it.
Sounds good.
A quick interruption from Jeff Miller, JMB. We also host those, so get a hold of us, myself or Mark, and we're happy to set those up. They are actually quite educational. We keep it relatively generic. And the one thing that we've talked a lot about today is, the technology is good for this or that. It's a way of controlling the speed of a fan or a pump or a conveyor. It doesn't do anything if it's not controlled right. So applying these things in applications that make sense is definitely another critical aspect when we're looking at a VFD.
Right on, Jeffrey. Thank you. Excellent.
Other questions from the audience?
As I said, if you guys think of something else in the later, email me, give me a call. Be happy to respond back, and I can copy and work on my responses, and we can publish those.
So in Europe, I have one more question. In Europe, are they further along in adopting next generation devices, silicon carbide, gallium nitride devices and drives, or are they about where we are today? Just curious.
The technology for drives is pretty advanced, but some of the bigger issues we're having with variable frequency drives is heat management, getting the heat out, controlling the heat in the drive, and the heat affecting the capacitors, the IGBTs, and the silicone components inside of the drive.
Right.
Some of the technologies we're looking at are going to gel-filled capacitors and those kind of things. But heat, fans, and moving that air out of there are the biggest challenges we've got with the drives. Europe is probably 15 to 20 years ahead of us in utilizing drives.
Yeah.
But from the technology of variable frequency drives, most drive manufacturers make their drives or engineer them partially in Europe and partially here in the United States. So the technology of the drives, we're all using IGBTs, we're all using some sort of a rectifier for AC to DC, we're all using capacitors as a general rule. So I think the design that we're looking for is, smaller, cheaper, faster. But I think size, we were getting to the point where we've got to the size. Now we've got to worry about the heat management, how efficient the drives are. We're running drives at 98% efficiency, so we have very small losses. So that's one of the driving things. And then how do you take that heat and how can you control that heat so that in the summer you can duct it out, but in the winter you can duct it into the room and use that to heat the building for free.
Right.
So those are some of the challenges of figuring out to use it.
Yeah. So one of the nice things about working with MWork, for those who are on the phone, we have a whole host of smaller startup companies that are plugging away at different problem sets and trying to adopt applications that they could prove out in a prototype or a minimal viable product and then commercialize. So one of those companies is a company called Liquid Cool, and they've actually immersed to take heat out whole computers for data centers and immersed it completely in a dielectric fluid and eliminated all the fans and blowing parts. So I encourage those of you who have not been working with MWork and viewed some of our startup companies to see some of those new technologies. I'm not sure if the folks at ABB have seen that particular application, but it's not done for drives, but it is done for computers, where they completely immerse the entire computer, eliminate all the blowing mechanical parts for cooling, and just have one dielectric fluid that is then pumped through a heat exchanger. So interesting.
So we've got a great design staff in our New Berlin facility in the Wisconsin, Wauwatosa facilities, where they do a lot of R&D and research. And some of the things we're developing for just swimming pool pumps is using the pump water, the pool water, to cool the drive, where you don't have a fan on the motor, you don't have a fan on the drive, and your electronics are mounted to the heat tube, and you're running that water through there, and then that's doing your cooling for your motor and your VFD. So a lot of technologies, again, going toward that cooling side. In wastewater, it's a little different because we wouldn't want to be flushing dirty water around the drives into there. And we've got some other issues with submerging equipment in there because you have repair and fixing it and its contaminations and different fluids and those kind of things, hazmat and that. But there are some technologies that we're looking at and investing into, I think, that will, as I said, cooling is our next biggest challenge, I think.
Great, great.
So thank you for everybody's time. I think I went over a little bit. I apologize.
No, I think we're right on time. We're good.
We're
awesome.
Good. Awesome. Oh, time for the plant tour.
It is time for the plant tour. So before we jump off and go to the plant tour, I want to thank all our speakers. I want to thank the organizers of the conference, Wisconsin Biogas Council, the Wisconsin chapter of AEE, as well as ABB yourself for hosting and putting this together. And, you know, drives are foundational to our business model, so I really look forward to going ahead and continuing to have our members who are looking for ways to improve efficiency, to incorporate these types of designs that we heard today into their product portfolios. So thank you. With that, I'll turn it back to you guys and describe how you're going to conduct the plant tour.
Yeah, it's going to be, unfortunately, we can't share my webcam. I don't show my screen. There we go. So obviously with the COVID, we can't, and are you looking at my screen by chance? So we can't take you into our factory. So what we did is we worked up a virtual tour, and this is the entrance. Am I sharing my screen here? I hit the.
You're sharing your desktop.
Okay, so why don't I move the graphic over?
There you go.
And all right, so this is our manufacturing facility. I'm going to play the audio. What we did is we had the response from people for the different groups on the audio. This worked fine in testing, and you guys know it never does when you do it in the real world. So if you can't hear the audio, I'll repeat what they're saying. So I'm just going to go ahead and play it, and we'll start off with the tour, and then we'll go and see Yumi working also. Can you guys hear that? Did you guys hear anything?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Although I'm the only person who replied yes, so I'm asking for confirmation for one or two other people.
I don't hear anything.
No audio.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'll just tell everybody what. So, drive facility located in Berlin, Wisconsin, houses R&D, drive service workshop, training, engineering, manufacturing, procurement and logistics, and customer service. 190,000 square foot facility, 385 employees, over across 3 shifts.
Okay.
Lots of ISO certifications. We have the OSHA VTP star. Health and safety is a foundation of our clean, safe, and efficient workplace. Employee engagement and participation in the safety program drives a culture of safety, driving the culture toward continuous improvement. Electrical safety is a key focus, less waste, and safe starting.
No.
Did you have a comment, Alan?
No, that was a comment directed to somebody else. My apologies.
Okay, right, so she's reading this. So with ABB products applied in industrial, this is our production lines. We do high pot testing of the variable frequency drive. Testing the durability, like you can read this, but this is a key thing. We do the high pot testing of every single drive that we produce. So we test every single drive. So when you buy a drive from ABB, it's actually a used drive because we've actually run it on a loaded motor. We've actually run it through and cycled testing of it to see how it endures with the normal things you would see in day-to-day operation. And we are the only manufacturer in the world that tests 100% full load testing verified of every single product we produce that goes out the door. We also use smart vision systems to verify that everything is in a package, to ensure that everything is put in there, quality in the shipping. So what we do here is we're able to scan the back of the instruction manual to make sure that it's the right language for the right product in the box, and the components and terminals and other peripherals, accessories that come with that when it's shipped out. So we use a lot of vision systems, we use a lot of barcodes, lots of scanning, and lots of double and triple checks to make sure that the customer is getting exactly what they want when they need it. This is where we manufacture most of our drives today. We manufacture drives of an ACS 550, an ACS 580, and ACS 880s in a lot of variety of these units. We use 3 shifts, Monday through Friday, and on the left side of the facility, we manufacture this series of drives, and on the right side, we manufacture bulk of the other ones there. The 580 series is our next generation, new generation of products we introduced about 2 years ago. And again, we do test 100% of our units. Some of the ways we do manufacturing process here is we use a Kanban system. So in other words, you have inventory to build the product, and then when you get to a certain point, there's a card in the bin. You take it out, put it into a sleeve, and then the person whose job it is, the spider, is to go out and find all those cards, pick them up, and restock as you're using it. So you're using real-time component usage as you're really using the product. So if you're making a lot of one product, you're getting the parts and pieces for it. This is where we do custom configurations. And again, we do this through 3 shifts. We produce, typically lead time for us is 2 days on almost all of our products, except for some of our larger products. And again, we use a Kanban system to maintain minimal inventory on the floor, to keep it out of the way, but to keep the right products based off of the real usage. If we're producing a lot of smaller products in one day, we go out of our way to make sure that those components are refilled and refreshed quicker. And then if that way we can fluctuate what we're building based off of the actual demand of what people are actually selling or using or buying. We have different product lines today offering from the markets, including HVAC, water, wastewater, and industrial. So we also have an enclosed production facility where we actually manufacture panels. And a lot of times when a customer is requesting a variable frequency drive, they're saying, you know, I need that, but I want to put something around it. I want to protect it with a circuit breaker because I've got a big panel feeding this, but I want to have its own protection. I want to have disconnects on it. I want to have selector switches or speed pots, or I want to have bypass if it's a critical application. And I want to have all those things built into the panel. So you can reach out to Jeff Miller, one of our reps, and say, hey, Jeff, I want to buy a drive with a circuit breaker and a bypass, and I want it to have a line reactor. We talked about protection of devices earlier. And we can put all that into there. We can make that at our line at the factory and give you a custom cabinet unit, customized based on what you want into it. We put that in the computer, it spits it out, and we print it. We make it that day, and again, it's typically we're saying anywhere from 2 to 5 days for manufacturing, depending on how complex it is and how many we have in line ahead of it. Because we're doing just-in-time manufacturing. We don't build product to stock as much as we build product as we need it. So we're building products today to sell today, to ship today. So we have a very short lead time, but because of the extensive Kanban system and the inventory we have, we can build a variety of different products very quickly. And it makes us very nimble, but allows us to respond very quickly to the changes in the market or demands. We have lots of different enclosure ratings for those available in Type 1, Type 12, and Type 3R, which is an outdoor enclosure. And we make this is the internal jargon for ABB, we make a variety of products up to 300 horsepower for our older series, the 550, and then our new series, we make them through 350 horsepower in the New Berlin, Wisconsin facility. We're getting ready to expand that up through 700 horsepower for the 580 here in the next 10 to 15 days. So we're pretty much making almost everything we produce and use here in the North American market, specifically here in the United States. We import a little bit of product, but most of what we sell in the United States is product built in here in Berlin, Wisconsin. Since you can't hear the audio, I'm kind of skipping through here. So we have, this is where we actually build the sub-assemblies and we do some of the panel work. We can make millions of combinations of these, so we have to maintain lots of parts and pieces to do this. And this is our larger cabinet program where we can build 2 to 3 drives per day with typically about a 3-week lead time. Now these are very complicated, very large units. This unit here is probably, I'd say, Jeff, 6, maybe 800 horsepower. It's a bigger unit. And it's available is what we call here, this is NEMA 1 or NEMA 12 enclosure ratings. This line produces units from 75 horsepower to about 3,000 horsepower. We see these applications, and this is all low voltage. We do make some medium voltage products, but this is all typically 480 volt product. We see these on pumps, we see them on fans, we see them on paper machines, winders, mining equipment, cooling towers, rock crushers, dynos, conveyor belts, bow thrusters. You know, a lot of times we're seeing bow thrusters in ships going to electronic instead of hydraulic systems. It's more efficient. Again, because of the ramping, you can control how much water you're flowing through the bow thruster and give you accurate control. So just fantastic capabilities there. This is our senior production team on some of our larger assembled units. This is some of our medium voltage product that ranges from 250 to 3,000 horsepower. Now the voltages here are very different than the 200 volt or 400 volt or 120 volts we see in our homes and in our industrial business today. These voltages are 2,300 or 4,160. We have some, we call that 5 kV, and we see some 7,000 volt products. So this is a higher there. These are a lot more labor intensive, and this is the team that builds these. They're 10 employees. They do it through 4 stations and do sub-assembly and test. We test each and every drive at the factory. They build these in New Berlin, medium voltage, 4,000 volts, built to order. They're very customizable to a degree. We only make the drive, we don't make the electronic controls, and then we typically partner with the other ABB divisions to provide the circuit breakers and disconnects and the other equipment that we typically produce with these units. So also as a manufacturing facility, you've got to do a lot of service and repair work. I mean, we do have products that come in that occasionally do get damaged with lightning strikes. You know, I always joke that there's a forklift around every corner that can hit a variable frequency drive and knock it off the wall or do damage to it. So, and we do occasionally get a component failure inside of a VFD. So when that happens, we have a service workshop where we do our own repairs, we do preventative maintenance. If you send it to us and have us do an upgrade or an update for the products, we run that through 2 shifts. The great thing is with the COVID, our business has really not fallen off. We're a critical facility because we do water, wastewater, hospitals, air handlers, those kind of things. So we're a critical manufacturer for a lot of those components. So our business actually has stabilized. We went to 2 shifts so we could social distance our employees. We gave them the flexibility to continue working. We were able to social distance them and separate them out where they're not having to work on top of each other. If you look at the workstations, you would see you'd have these 2 guys too close together here. So by spreading them out, you really give them the ability to social distance in there. 28,000 square foot facility. We have lots of tools and fixtures to do the testing. We, again, when we do the maintenance and repair, we run the unit through a full test, just like we do when we make the unit to make sure that it's going to withstand, and that we've got all the problems that the customer is sending it back to us for. We also have, sometimes when you have an electronic failure, the carbon in it will fail and cause the enclosure to be black. So I don't want to say we have a car wash, but we wash the components, keep them clean, and send them back in a nice, a newer looking position. We're an ISO certified in manufacturing facility, which means that everything is documented how we do it. We use these computer terminals are what we use to make sure that we have a process. So you pull the terminal up and you scan the drive that you're working on, and you put in what cards you're putting into it, and it starts walking you through how to connect it, how to unscrew the old one out, how to screw the old one back in, what torque levels you need to make sure the screws are at to make sure it's manufactured properly, and all the work instructions will run there through that interactive system in there. We use lots of screens, lots of laptops, lots of monitors throughout the facility. We use barcodes and scanners all over the place because we're trying to verify every component put into there. If someone manufactures perhaps a bad diode, we want to be able to trace it to figure out which boards it was put on, where those boards were sent to, which drives they were sent into, and how many made it out into the field before we caught the defect. So it's that kind of manufacturing that really gives us the capability to track and watch, and that is through the ISO certification. We use FIFO methodology for the Kanban systems and the controlling of inventory. And safety is our guiding light in everything we do. You'll notice everything is put back in the right ways. Everything is clean. It's safe. We have very wide aisle walkways. They've put tape down here to tell you which areas you can walk in without safety glasses on, which areas you have to have safety glasses on to walk into, which areas you can walk around in. And of course, in our entire facility, you're not allowed to walk around talking on your phone. We encourage you to use our rest areas and the cafeterias for phone calls. When you're walking is not a time to use your phone. We've all laughed at the videos of people falling into fountains and falling down holes or basement areas off of there, but in our facility, we do not allow you to use your phone while you're walking in the factory. And this is our training. We also have a fantastic training facility into there, lots of hands-on training. You can do complete startup, where you do the complete installation, to just a simple programming, to just if we were there, we would actually have whiteboards up and we could do theory presentations. So we can do everything from hands-on programming, installation. We can do preventative maintenance. We can do repair, taking equipment apart. We have electricity available inside of the facilities. We have all the tools and everything to take things apart and fix them. We also have all the whiteboards, and we've got a staff of just some of the most gifted people across the United States with tremendous knowledge. I've been in the driving industry for going on almost 30 years now, and the amount of experience that is at ABB is staggering, and the people you can talk to and the experts that you can put at your fingertips. 80% of the content for our training is done online because we have so much capability for pre-course work and prerequisites to make sure that you're ready and prepared for very in-depth and hands-on training. 98% of our instructor-led training is hands-on in the labs. We teach a class through the water wastewater guys that 65% of the class, and it's a theory-based class, is hands-on programming, making it happen with you watching it happen on the drive itself. really, really great there. We have 2,200 courses created to meet the need of just about whether you're a maintenance man, whether you're a salesman, whether you're an ABB employee, whether you're a manufacturer's rep, or maybe you're an operator or a user. All of this information is available for free. You go to the ABB training site and you can register and you can go through all of our training. And again, there's no cost. We just ask you that you register so that we can keep track of what you're training on. Because anytime we make a change to the training, we send you a tickle file saying, hey, the training has changed and you can take this class now that's been updated or upgraded. Again, from end users and customers, channel partners to contractors, we will do a lot of work with electrical, mechanical contractors. Also, those are extensions that Jeff at JMB and his team can go out and do, and they can offer additional trainings more in the field. This is more factory-oriented training. We can also take some of these trainings on the road, with whether it's in our truck or we do some remote startup, or we can't do service training because we need products there at the factory to do the repair work. Do a good bit of that there at the factory. And this is our customer service department, which we have a large pod of customer service people that take all the phone calls and all the orders that come in purely from a customer service point of view, and they are handling all order entry and order entry type of questions, expediting and handling delays and those kind of things. And then in our other facility, we've got an inside sales technical support team that answers all your technical questions and does the application support. If you're in front of a variable frequency drive and it's giving an error you've never seen before, you pick up the phone and you call 1-800-752-0696, option 1, you get the ABB service department. And you dial in and you're talking to a guy who's got the drive probably right there in front of him. He can sit there and play with the programming. He's got the manuals there, deep experience, and offers a lot of expertise to really help you get through the issue that you're running into and help you get through it. And the idea is to make you look like a hero in front of your customer. So I have one last video I just want to show you very quickly. This is Yumi. This is the robot in here, and it's got some text here, and I'll try to, yeah. Yumi was added to New Berlin to improve product quality and processing. What she does is it moves the drive over. They scan, say, okay, this is the drive you're looking at. This is a position that you're going to be moving to. But what you're going to do is you're going to move the test bar we put into this thing. So it tests, it takes pictures to tell where everything is, tells the screwdriver where to go. The smart tool checks the torque to make sure that they're tight, and then reverses them so that it can loosen them up and take them available out of the drive, so that it can finish the test and go to the next stage, which is boxing, packaging. And we use barcodes a lot on this because we're really trying to verify that we've got, again, the right product. We're tracking all the components in there. We're making sure that the right product ships to the right customer with the right manuals, and it's just everything we can do to prevent an oops or a product when you open the box and it's the wrong product inside of it. That's really what we're trying to produce. But Yumi is an ABB robot, and then she's just finished her whole testing there. So we're very proud of Yumi. So that's all I've got from a tour. And again, I encourage you, if you get a chance, to please come by the factory. I apologize for the tour being kind of the way it was virtually. We can't take live video into the production facility because we're afraid of the employees, and they get it's more of a safety issue with somebody walking around shooting cameras. They have a concern over that. So we did it this way to do that and to give you a chance. But I will encourage all of you, if you do get a chance, please take a day out of your time and come in and visit and go through our factory. And Jeff Miller, the great thing about working with our reps is Jeff has got a great relationship with everybody there in the factory, and he can help set up the tours. I think he's even capable of doing some of them. I think he's been through it so many times. But we can get the right person to run you through the factory and see it. And the chiller room is fantastic. So that's all I've got. So that's the end of the tour. Oh, okay, so I thank everybody for coming to New Berlin, Wisconsin to visit the ABB facility. I hope to see all of you again, and I will extend the invitation to come in.
I had okay. Well, thank you, Jeff, and all of our speakers, and everyone who attended today's webinar. and help put this all together. I hope everyone found this an informative session, as well as very insightful into the different opportunities that drives have for biogas and wastewater treatment, as well as maybe some other places where you hadn't thought of them before. So thank you again. And then we have
your camera.
Oh, then we can turn. All right.
We're not social distancing now. Okay.
All right. Yeah, they can see us.
Oh, all right. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Thielen. I want to thank Emily as well. She's been working hard behind the scenes. I know Nate Conroy's out there. And this actually was part of a product with the Wisconsin Engineering Group, the Wisconsin Biogas, but also MWorks Working Group. So if you have ideas and interests and you want to join that working group, we would welcome you on that. I'm not sure, maybe you can only see my forehead, who knows?
There you go.
So we're just together in the office. Want to thank you again, and please reach out with additional ideas. And have a great afternoon, depending on what time it is where you are.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Somebody texted me, can't see you.